Chapter 14:18. Ji Wuxiang was indeed suspicious. However, when he saw Qiyu flying backwards, his eyebrows immediately rose. Humph, you dare to go against the celestial chess, you overestimate yourself. Even so, Ji Wuxiang was still shocked. This was because the strength that Qiyu had displayed had deeply shocked him. He had actually defeated the starry saber at the risk of being injured. Ji Wuxiang did not suspect that this was a problem with the celestial chess. Tang Zheng stood up from the ruins outside the house, looked at Ji Wuxiang from afar, and made a decision in his heart. He saw a trace of pride in Ji Wuxiang's eyes, which meant that Ji Wuxiang did not suspect anything. His plan succeeded. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth in a sorry state and said, "The celestial chess is indeed worthy of its reputation." As soon as he finished speaking, he shot out like a cannonball, flying into the distance. Ji Wuxiang's expression turned cold, and he shouted sternly, "Qiyu, you want to escape? You have already entered my celestial chess, do you think it is so easy to escape?" Ji Wuxiang immediately chased after him, but he was one step too slow. Tang Zheng's figure disappeared in front of his eyes. However, he was not worried. Dianan was under the control of the celestial chess, and any movement in the wind could not escape his eyes. In fact, it was so. When Ji Wuxiang activated the celestial chess, the trace of Qiyu immediately appeared in his mind. He smiled coldly, "Qiyu, let's see where you can run to." After Tang Zheng saw the power of the celestial chess, he was also very clear about this. However, he was not afraid. Instead, he flew straight out of the city. "Ji Wuxiang, you would never have dreamed that the person you are chasing is someone who knows the celestial chess very well, right?" Tang Zheng laughed proudly, and his feet shook. He did not fly in a straight line, but flew in a strange trajectory. Ji Wuxiang was overjoyed to see that he was getting closer and closer to Qiyu. Suddenly, his pupils constricted as he exclaimed in surprise. What happened? Did we lose track of him? They had almost reached the border of Dianan. Tang Zheng had chosen this moment to make a sudden move and evade Tian Qi's detection. As long as one's cultivation was profound enough, and one had a sufficient understanding of the heavenly chess, it would not be difficult to achieve this. Tang Zheng did just that. He chose the right time and suddenly made his move, disappearing silently from the celestial chess. Ji Wuxiang didn't believe that Qiyu could disappear from the heavenly chess so mysteriously. He immediately activated the heavenly chess, wanting to continue investigating. However, after half a day, he still found nothing. The shock and despair in his eyes could not be concealed. Qiyu had really successfully escaped from the celestial chess. Ji Wuxiang had no choice but to stop. At this point, it was futile to continue searching. He frowned and racked his brains. Finally, he had a flash of inspiration. He guessed something. This is the border of southern Yunnan, which is also the border of the area controlled by the heavenly chess. Could it be that the power of the heavenly chess has weakened? That's why Qiyu was able to take advantage of it. That must be it. That's the only way to explain everything. Qiyu, you're really cunning. You managed to slip away right under my nose. However, on second thought, even a famous person like Qiyu could only run away when facing him. This was enough to show how powerful he was. He was truly superior to Qiyu. Qiyu killed so many of my men. Do you think you can escape just by running away? Humph, how is that possible? Ji Wuxiang's expression turned cold and gloomy. A debt of blood must be paid in blood. Qiyu, just you wait. I'll visit your headquarters very soon and make you pay in blood. Ji Wuxiang had made up his mind. He would go to Qiyu's headquarters and give him a fatal blow. Tang Zheng had slipped away. He had safely left southern Yunnan. He let out a long sigh of relief and calmed down. He looked in the direction of southern Yunnan from afar and muttered to himself, Ji Wuxiang, you won't suspect anything now. You'll definitely attack Qiyu. Then I'll just sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. Southern Yunnan was full of mystery at night. Especially in Tang Zhang's eyes, those chess games that were faintly discernible in the air had infinite power. He had also experienced the power of the heavenly chess. He wanted to study it more deeply. As long as he understood more about the heavenly chess, he would have more advantages in future battles. He could even decide the outcome of the battle. In addition, he already knew Ji Wuxiang's biggest secret. Once he returned, he could let the martial artists around him also have the power of the stars. Moreover, it was not the weak power of Ji Wuxiang's subordinates. They could truly absorb the power of the stars freely. Whether it was Yi Dingdang or Wu, they would all have great improvements and their strength would increase greatly. He suppressed the excitement in his heart, summoned the somersault cloud, and soared into the sky. Xiao Bai came out of the Sumra world again and stood beside Tang Zhang. He said bitterly, Master, I couldn't help you on this trip to southern Yunnan. Tang Zhang laughed and patted his head. What's there to be depressed about? There are still many battles. When the time comes, you will have the chance to show off. Xiao Bai nodded. The somersault cloud carried them and flew towards the capital. However, before they could go too far, a figure swept past from afar. Its speed was faster than a plane. However, Tang Zhang and Xiao Bai's pupils shrank. They recognized that it was a person. His speed was extremely fast. He must be an expert. Both sides looked at each other. Xiao Bai said, Master, this is an expert. I can feel his aura. Tang Zhang's expression was solemn. The other party was of course an expert. Fortunately, he was hiding in the somersault cloud. Otherwise, he would have been discovered by the other party. Such an expert appeared in the human world. He would definitely not turn a blind eye. As for whether the other party was a martial artist or a cultivator, he could not guess for the time being. This was because after transformation, martial artists could also fly. Chase. Tang Zhang immediately made a decision. Xiao Bai was eager to try. His cheeks were red with excitement and he nodded fiercely. The somersault cloud chased after the mysterious person. Both sides were extremely fast, like two rays of light. Both sides chased for an unknown period of time. The enemy in front suddenly slowed down. Tang Zhang also subconsciously slowed down. Whoosh! Then, a sharp sound broke through the air. Tang Zhang's pupils shrank. He saw a ray of light shoot from the hand of the person in front of him to a certain place in front of him. Tang Zhang was aghast. He saw this ray of light shoot towards a cloud. This cloud was no different from an ordinary cloud. However, in Tang Zhang's eyes, this cloud was completely different. This is not an ordinary cloud. It contains supernatural power. It is some kind of camouflage tool. His fiery eyes of truth immediately saw through it. The facts also proved his guess. When the ray of light hit the cloud, a dazzling golden light shot out from the cloud with great power. The golden light was almost blinding. However, Tang Zhang stared straight at the golden light. He was reluctant to look away for a moment. What was this? Tang Zhang had an answer in his mind. Chapter 14:19. The golden light met the attack and rumbled like a thunderbolt on a clear day. The golden light dissipated, and a crack was torn in the clouds, like a huge scar. Rays of golden light were faintly discernible in the clouds. Xiao Bai's eyes widened as he recognized the true appearance behind the clouds. He couldn't help but exclaim, Golden Dragon, it's him. Tang Zhang nodded with a sullen face. It's indeed the Golden Dragon. When he saw the golden light in the clouds earlier, he had already recognized the true appearance behind the clouds. Moving clouds and summoning rain was one of the dragon race's special skills. When Tang Zheng saw this unusual cloud, his heart skipped a beat. When he saw the golden light shooting out from the clouds, he no longer had any doubts. The one hiding in the clouds was the golden dragon that he knew. Back then, the golden dragon was afraid that the dragon slayer would discover its whereabouts and implicate Tang Zheng, so it resolutely left, ignoring Tang Zheng's urging to stay. Since then, although Tang Zheng had left behind the whereabouts of the golden dragon, he had no clue. He never expected to find the whereabouts of the golden dragon near southern Yunnan today. Not only that, but the golden dragon was also in a very difficult situation. It was chased by a strong man and had to use clouds as a camouflage. Tang Zheng locked onto the enemy of the golden dragon from afar. His eyes narrowed slightly like slits. Dragon Slayer. Tang Zheng gritted his teeth and said word by word. He had almost died at the hands of the Dragon Slayer, so he naturally wouldn't forget him. The Dragon Slayer's strength was as strong as ever, especially when it came to killing the golden dragon. The golden dragon was obviously powerless. When Tang Zheng saw this scene, he could no longer sit back and ignore it. He quietly approached the Dragon Slayer. The Dragon Slayer's attention was all on the golden dragon. He had spent a lot of energy to find the golden dragon, and the other party seemed to have some way to avoid him. However, he was one step ahead. In the end, he found the golden dragon and chased it all the way. The golden dragon's strength was beyond his expectations, and it almost slipped away from his eyes. The golden dragon was right in front of him, and the dragon's soul was like the most delicious delicacy, as if it was summoning a hungry man like him. He stared at the clouds with shining eyes, as if he wanted to see through the clouds and see the golden dragon in the clouds. Die! He let out a low roar, and like a muffled thunderclap, he attacked the golden dragon in the clouds. He was determined to win with this attack. This was his belief. The golden dragon watched helplessly as the fierce attack came at it at lightning speed. It wanted to dodge or escape. However, that strike just now had consumed a lot of his energy. Moreover, the chase had exhausted him both physically and mentally. He originally thought that he could avoid the Dragon Slayer, but he didn't expect that he would be so naive. Hope was beautiful, but reality was cruel. The Dragon Slayer was much more powerful than he had imagined. No wonder so many seniors of the Dragon clan had died at his hands. He had wanted to avenge his clansmen, but now it seemed like it was just wishful thinking. Could it be that I can't escape the fate of the other Dragon clan seniors? Am I going to follow in their footsteps and have my dragon soul absorbed by the Dragon Slayer? The golden dragon was in despair. He activated his energy again and prepared to fight for the last time. Suddenly, a cloud flew into its line of sight. The speed of this cloud was extremely fast, and it was very rare. More importantly, it was very familiar with this cloud. Somersault Cloud. He called out the cloud's name with one sentence. That means he's here. The golden dragon was both excited and worried. He left the capital to avoid bringing trouble to Tang Zheng. Now, Tang Zheng had taken the initiative to sacrifice himself to save him. His original plan was ruined. Of course, he didn't blame Tang Zheng. Instead, he was touched. The strength of the Dragon Slayer was something that Tang Zheng knew as well as it, but Tang Zheng could overcome the threat of death and save it without hesitation. In the eyes of the Golden Dragon, the somersault cloud was getting closer and closer to the Dragon Slayer, but the Dragon Slayer didn't seem to notice. A streak of cold light shot out from the somersault cloud like a sharp arrow, accurately attacking the Dragon Slayer. Finally, a cold light appeared in the Dragon Slayer's eyes. He didn't even turn his head and attacked with a backhand move. At the last moment, he finally noticed something. He didn't have time to turn around, so he took the opportunity to meet this sharp attack. However, when the two hands came into contact, the heaven-devouring book was immediately activated. A black hole appeared in Tang Zheng's palm. A huge suction force was like a rope, coiling around and binding the Dragon Slayer tightly. The Dragon Slayer's face was stern. Ever since he came to this world, he had never met anyone who dared to provoke him like this. He was going to give the other party a good beating and let him know the consequences of offending him. He took the opportunity to attack with a backhand move. Light bloomed in his hand and hit the black hole. Boom! There was a loud sound that made people's hearts tremble. The black hole vibrated violently. Tang Zheng had no choice but to appear from the somersault cloud, and the Dragon Slayer quickly turned around. Their eyes met, and his pupils shrank. Naturally, he recognized this enemy that he had fought before. He snorted coldly in his heart and made up his mind not to give the other party a third chance. Tang Zheng also saw the Dragon Slayer's expression, and his heart trembled. It seemed that the Dragon Slayer was going to use his trump card. The Dragon Slayer had indeed used one of his trump cards. Its power was peerless. He was confident that victory was in his hands. Be careful. The golden dragon had already appeared in the clouds. The shrunken dragon's body was coiled up, and its two huge dragon eyes stared worriedly at Tang Zheng. It couldn't help but cry out. "Humph, I didn't expect you two to be together. You actually managed to get away with it in front of me," the Dragon Slayer said with annoyance. At the same time, power burst forth from his palm. The light in his palm became even more blazing, like a red sun. The black hole shook violently as if it would collapse at any time. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. He was shocked by the Dragon Slayer's counterattack, but he wasn't afraid. Retreating would only lead to death. Not only him, but even the golden dragon wouldn't be able to escape. Since enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road, and the old enemy had reunited, then he would let go of everything and release his strongest power. Tang Zheng activated the sky-devouring technique. The black light expanded, and the black hole immediately stabilized. A vast amount of energy was sucked into the black hole, and this energy gathered in the heaven realm. Absorption. This was the successful counterattack that Tang Zheng had used all his strength. Moreover, it was very effective. The Dragon Slayer's mind was sharp, and his perception was top-notch. He immediately realized that his power was being sucked into the black hole. How could he not understand what was going on? He stared at Tang Zheng with burning eyes and roared, "You still want to absorb my power? Dream on. Break." As soon as he finished speaking, the Dragon Slayer's palm shone brightly. Its power far exceeded that of the others. Most importantly, the majestic energy rushed toward the black hole. Boom! The black hole shook violently again, and the frequency of the shaking became higher and higher. It seemed that it would disappear at any time. "I just got home today, and I'll be back to normal tomorrow." To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1420. The Dragon Slayer was very familiar with Tang Zheng. During the battle at Mount Buzhou, Tang Zheng had used the power of Mount Buzhou to scare the Dragon Slayer away, allowing him to escape death. The Dragon Slayer had traversed many worlds, but he had never met such a young expert who could even threaten his existence. What he did not know was that Tang Zheng had only used the power of Mount Buzhou. Once he left Mount Buzhou, his power would disappear, and he would revert to his original self. Back then, Tang Zheng was still weak and did not have the power to fight the Dragon Slayer. But now, he had reached the Mahayana realm. Although the Dragon Slayer was strong, he would not admit defeat. Seeing that the golden dragon was in danger, he rushed over without a care for his own safety. The Dragon Slayer kept channeling his power, burning with anger. Back then, he had suspected that Tang Zheng was related to the dragon tribe, but had been fooled. Especially when he was scared away by Tang Zheng in the end. This was a great humiliation, and he would often think about it and feel ashamed. The Dragon Slayer was a smart person. He recalled the battle with Tang Jing many times and gradually figured out what was going on. In that battle, Tang Jing was at an absolute disadvantage at first and was not a match for the Dragon Slayer at all. Later on, Tang Jing became braver and braver as he fought. In the end, his strength soared and he scared the Dragon Slayer away. The Dragon Slayer carefully thought about it and deduced that Tang Jing was not that strong. Something must have happened later on, or something secretly helped him. Then, his strength soared. Since Tang Jing was borrowing external power, the Dragon Slayer's heart was much less heavy. He stared at Tang Jing with killing intent that soared to the heavens. He gnashed his teeth and said, "You dare to lie to me. Today is the day you die." Whoosh! The dragon whip appeared out of thin air and flashed with golden light. It whipped towards Tang Jing with a piercing sound. Tang Jing frowned. He had seen the power of the dragon whip and did not dare to be careless. He activated the somersault cloud and tried to fly to the side. However, the black hole was connected to the Dragon Slayer's palm. A strange force pulled the black hole, and for a moment, Tang Jing did not have time to dodge to the side. Whoosh! The dragon whip was right in front of his eyes. A strong gust of wind blew in all directions, causing pain to his cheeks. It was as if the tip of a blade was scraping across his face. Tang Jing took a deep breath and wanted to stop the sky-swallowing technique. This way, it would not be so easy to use the sky-swallowing technique to firmly attract the Dragon Slayers again. But at this critical juncture of life and death, if you want to gain something, you have to lose something. Therefore, he did not hesitate at all. However, a voice sounded in Tang Jing's ears. "Master, I'll deal with him." Xiao Bai let out a low roar and soared into the air. In the time it took for a spark to fly off a piece of flint, he had already vanished from his original location and appeared in front of the Dragon Slayer. His hands formed into claws, and his fingernails were so sharp that they were even scarier than steel knives. Puff! The air was torn apart by him as he grabbed at the Dragon Slayer. Seeing this, the Dragon Slayer had no choice but to change the attack trajectory of the dragon whip. He had never seen Xiao Bai like this before, so naturally, he did not recognize Xiao Bai. However, he was an expert after all. He could tell at a glance that Xiao Bai was an expert and could not be underestimated. Therefore, with a shake of the dragon whip, it changed its path and faced Xiao Bai head-on. Xiao Bai's eyes lit up and it was as if his eyeballs were burning with raging flames. With an angry roar, he grabbed at the Dragon Slayer with his large hand. Pang! The dragon whip fiercely struck Xiao Bai's palm, but it was firmly grabbed by Xiao Bai and could not move at all. Although the Dragon Slayer was mentally prepared, he was still shocked when he saw this scene. He never thought that Xiao Bai's strength would be so high that he could even block his dragon whip. "Who are you?" the Dragon Slayer coldly asked. Ever since he came to this world, the people he met were all weaker than him. Therefore, his pride and arrogance rose and he did not put the people of this world in his eyes at all. Xiao Bai jokingly said, "If you dare to harm my master, you must first pass through me. As for who I am standing in front of you. Can't you see for yourself?" These words left the Dragon Slayer speechless. What made him even more shocked was that Xiao Bai had called Tang Jing master. He was very clear on what the word master meant. Such a powerful person actually called Tang Jing master. He could not help but look deeply at Tang Jing, as if he wanted to see through his mysteries. Xiao Bai dispelled the dragon whip's attack and Tang Jing was overjoyed. He finally did not have to give up the sky-swallowing technique and he did his best to activate it. In that instant, black light erupted and the originally wavering light immediately burned fiercely, completely enveloping the Dragon Slayer's palm. It was as if he would be completely sucked into the black hole in the next second. The Dragon Slayer's expression suddenly changed and he loudly shouted, "Not good." He only defended against Xiaobai, but did not defend against the next attack of the sky-swallowing technique. This caused him to fall into an extremely difficult situation. He felt a powerful force devouring his arm. His arm seemed to be dissolving, and it seemed as if it would not be long before it completely turned into nothingness. This was something that had never happened before, so how could he not be shocked? He knew that he could not delay any longer. Otherwise, that black hole would definitely cause fatal damage to him. As a result, he loudly roared and his feet tapped the air, flying backwards. His palm released a brilliant light as he broke free of the black hole's shackles. But at the same time, Xiaobai's power was displayed. The flames in his palm rose into the air and followed the dragon whip, spreading towards the dragon slayer at lightning speed. The dragon slayer was greatly shocked and hurriedly activated the dragon whip. The dragon whip fiercely trembled like a rolling dragon. Xiaobai was forced into helplessness and was also pulled along, spinning like a top. "Be careful, Xiaobai!" Tang Jing shouted in shock. The dragon whip was spinning too quickly, and its face was burning with raging flames. Therefore, this scene was like a fire dragon in a whirlwind. It was extremely terrifying. After hearing Tang Zheng's words, Xiaobai also knew that it was in a difficult situation. Although it had grabbed the dragon whip, it could not control it. This level of magic treasure was extremely powerful, and it was not something that an outsider could control at will. As a result, Xiaobai had no choice but to let go. The dragon whip broke free and immediately flew backwards like a fish in water. It retreated far away together with the dragon slayer. The golden dragon watched from the side with fear. It never dreamed that the dragon slayer, who was almost invincible in its eyes, would actually take the initiative to retreat under the joint forces of Tang Jing and Xiaobai. This was simply a fantasy. Tang Jing heaved a huge sigh of relief. Xiaobai's strength was beyond his expectations. If the two of them worked together, their chances of winning would greatly increase. At least, that was the case for the current situation. Seeing the dragon slayer pull apart the distance between the two of them, Tang Jing did not blindly chase after him. Instead, he stared at the dragon slayer with a face as heavy as water and said, "Dragon slayer, didn't you run away this time? You still dare to appear now, are you really not afraid of death?" The dragon slayer looked at Tang Jing, then at the golden dragon, and said bitterly, "You brat, you lied to me time and time again. You swore that you had nothing to do with the dragon clan. Now it seems that it was all a lie. Your relationship is actually so deep. I spent so much effort to find the whereabouts of the dragon clan. It turns out that they were by my side." Tang Jing denied his relationship with the dragon clan this time because he was forced to do so. Seeing that the dragon slayer had seen through him, although he was mentally prepared, his heart still tightened. The dragon clan elder of the Langya Pavilion had repeatedly warned that he must not let the dragon clan see through his identity. Otherwise, he would be in danger. That dragon clan elder had once said that it was precisely because Tang Zheng's dragon soul had the ability to conceal itself that it could not be easily detected by the dragon clan. That was why he could catch the dragon slayer off guard. Now that his identity had been seen through, it was only a matter of time before the news reached the ears of all the dragon slayers. The advantage that Tang Jing had gained would be completely gone. Tang Jing did not even need to think to know how serious the consequences of this would be. He stared at the dragon slayer with a burning gaze and made a decision in his heart. He absolutely could not let the dragon slayer leave. Otherwise, his greatest secret and reliance would be completely gone. This would attract even more dragon slayers to come to this world. After all, a hidden dragon clan member was too attractive to the dragon slayers. They would definitely be impatient to use Tang Jing as an experimental specimen to conduct detailed research on in order to figure out his secrets and prevent the other dragon clan members from copying him and hiding their tracks. Seeing Tang Zheng's reaction, the dragon slayer's complacency rose spontaneously and became more and more intense. He said, "We searched high and low for you, only to find you by chance. We dragon slayers will be very interested in you. We will definitely find out how you avoided our dragon clan's detection." Tang Zheng said that it was indeed so. He had not guessed wrongly at all. Immediately, the dragon slayer became even more determined. He did not say a word and immediately gave a look to Xiao Bai and the golden dragon. Both sides immediately understood and blocked the dragon slayer's path. The three sides formed a triangle and firmly controlled the dragon slayer, constantly guarding against him from escaping. Seeing this scene, the dragon slayer felt more anger than danger. These people were actually preventing him from escaping. Was there a mistake? He was a famous dragon slayer. How could he escape without fighting? As for this time, it was completely an accident. The dragon slayer defended himself in his heart. If Tang Zheng heard his thoughts, he would definitely roll his eyes. Wouldn't the dragon slayer run away? How naive. If you want to deal with me, you have to weigh your own strength first. Now, not only will I pull out your tendons and devour your souls, I will also make you all die without a burial ground. The dragon slayer pointed at Tang Zheng and the others and said resolutely. Tang Zheng did not refute. He coldly snorted and roared, "Xiao Bai, golden dragon, let's work together. We must kill him here." Kill. The golden dragon was stunned. It seemed that he did not expect the dragon slayer to be killed. Tang Zheng lightly glanced at him and understood his thoughts. He decisively said, "Of course we'll kill him. What he did to the dragon clan, we will return tens of thousands of times. We will let you also experience the taste of it." After saying this, he took the lead and rushed out. The dragon might around his body surged. Dragon chi rose and overflowed with colors. He was like a golden man. This was because he had completely given up on restraining the dragon chi and dragon might. He simply used the dragon clan's abilities openly in order to kill the dragon slayer in front of him. Chapter 14:21. When the dragon slayer saw the golden light blossoming from Tang Zheng's body, he was both shocked and shocked. He originally thought that Tang Zheng had a close relationship with the dragon race. But now, it seemed that he had greatly underestimated Tang Zheng. Not only did this person have a close relationship with the dragon race, but more importantly, he was a member of the dragon race. He suddenly remembered that he had once sensed a vague dragon, but in the next moment, this feeling disappeared without a trace. He had thought that it was an illusion. Now, it seemed that it was not an illusion at all. This dragon race had a mysterious way of hiding their dragon soul. The truth was right in front of him and spoke louder than words. The dragon slayer stared at Tang Zheng with shining eyes and said, "Kill me? What a fantasy. If I capture you alive, you will definitely be the most valuable dragon I have ever captured in my life." Ha ha ha. The dragon slayer's eyes really shone and the corners of his mouth cracked into a sinister smile. Hearing the dragon slayer's bold words, Xiao Bai was the first to step out and refuted with righteous indignation, "If you want to harm my master, you will have to step over my dead body first." The dragon slayer's pupils shrank. He narrowed his eyes and stared straight at Xiao Bai. Clearly, he did not believe him. The golden dragon understood Xiao Bai better than the dragon slayer. When it saw him transform into a human, it was extremely shocked. When it heard Xiao Bai's loyal oath, it could not help but look at Tang Zheng. Xiao Bai had transformed into a human, so his strength must have increased by another level. It would be very beneficial for this battle. The golden dragon's originally despairing heart was once again filled with a trace of hope. While speaking, Tang Zheng rushed in front of the dragon slayer. Xiao Bai also rushed in front of the dragon slayer with surging killing intent. The dragon slayer's large hand trembled and waved the dragon whip. In an instant, the dragon whip flickered with golden light and lashed out at Tang Zheng's golden body. Force met force. Bang! Tang Zhang's arm was numb. He had resisted the dragon whip once, but his expression did not change. He quickly rushed forward and arrived in front of the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer cried out in surprise. His dragon whip curled up, and like a nimble and furious dragon, he quickly went up against Tang Zhang. Another muffled sound rang out. Tang Zhang and the dragon slayer both retreated backwards at the same time. Tang Zhang was secretly shocked. The dragon slayer was indeed powerful. However, after continuously attacking, he finally gained something. He had already roughly determined the cultivation level of the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer's cultivation was higher than his, but it was not ridiculously high. He was probably around the 6th stage of the Mahayana realm. Tang Zhang could hold on for a while, but the result was already decided. He was bound to lose. Of course, this was when he was alone. If he had the help of others and worked together, the consequences would be unknown. That being said, the pressure that Tang Zhang was under was unimaginable. Only the person involved could understand it. However, he still did not retreat. He stared at the dragon slayer as if he was facing death. The dragon slayer also saw Tang Zhang's cultivation level and said disdainfully, "A mere 2nd stage of the Mahayana realm wants to compete with me? You're overestimating yourself." After saying that, his gaze involuntarily swept to the golden dragon. He curled his lips in disdain. "So what if you're from the dragon clan? You're only at the 1st stage of the Mahayana realm. Compared to that kid, you're even worse." Ha ha ha. The contempt was obvious in his words. The golden dragon was furious, but there was nothing it could do. This was because the dragon slayer was telling the truth. Its cultivation level was indeed not as good as Tang Zhang's. There was no falsehood in one's cultivation. High was high, low was low. The dragon slayer's gaze shifted slightly and fell on Xiao Bai. However, he did not dare to underestimate him. His expression even became dignified. He knew very well that this battle was going to be fierce. If he was not careful, he would be doomed. Hearing the dragon slayer's unscrupulous comments, Tang Zhang stared straight at the other party and interrupted, "Dragon slayer, although your cultivation level is high, you are weak. If we work together, although our cultivation level is not as good as yours, we will still kill you." Kill. After a pause, there was a deafening roar that made one's blood boil. He was ready to take the lead again, but there was someone faster. That was Xiao Bai. Last time, Tang Zhang took the lead to launch an attack and was in danger. This time, he would not let the same situation happen again. As a result, Tang Zhang only saw a fiery red figure like a meteorite falling from the sky, blowing a strong wind and fiercely rushing toward the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer shook the dragon whip again. In an instant, the whip's shadow surged and stirred the sky. The dragon clan was good at moving clouds and making rain. The dragon slayer had absorbed countless dragon souls and made a dragon whip with dragon tendons. Naturally, the sky was changed by the wind and clouds and changed color. A storm was coming. Xiao Bai resolutely rushed forward. He was as fast as lightning. With a flash, he encountered the dragon whip. This time, Xiao Bai did not reach out to grab the dragon whip. Instead, with a shake of his body, he actually returned to his original form. His body rapidly shrank and passed through the seemingly airtight attack of the dragon whip. All of this happened in a flash. The change was really too fast. Therefore, before the dragon slayer could react, Xiao Bai was already in front of him. Although the dragon whip was powerful, it had not reached the level of being airtight. Therefore, Xiao Bai cleverly took advantage of this opportunity. If the dragon slayer had seen through Xiao Bai's true form earlier, perhaps he would not have done this and let Xiao Bai take advantage of this opportunity for nothing. There was no use in regretting it. After all, there was no medicine for regret in this world. The dragon slayer hurriedly turned his hand to defend. The dragon whip pointed backward, like a snake flicking its tongue. With a whoosh, it reached Xiao Bai's back. Whoosh! A ball of fiery red gradually rose from Xiao Bai's body. The fiery red hair was really like balls of flames. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, the flames split into 9 and surrounded the dragon slayer, blocking his path of retreat. The dragon whip and the flames intertwined and directly exploded. Sparks flew in all directions, covering the sky and land. It was incomparably brilliant. This attack actually showed signs of a stalemate, causing everyone's eyes to light up. In particular, the dragon slayer's eyes were cold. The meaning was self-evident. The dragon slayer was shocked. He had never thought that Xiao Bai's strength was actually so ridiculously high. Even he had no way of defeating the other party. Immediately, he somewhat believed Tang Zhang's words. With the 3 of them working together, perhaps he really could be killed by the other party. No, how can I admit defeat so casually? Dream on! The dragon slayer shouted in his heart. His expression was solemn as he attacked back. The dragon whip shook violently with a whoosh. It was as straight as a long spear without the slightest bend. It came and went straight, and one could imagine its power. The dragon whip was like a long spear, ruthlessly thrusting toward Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai's big hand reached out in the void and grabbed the long spear. The long spear's attack was like a rainbow. Xiao Bai was involuntarily pushed back by this huge force, and was forced to retreat. On the other hand, the dragon slayer's situation was not much different. The hand that was holding the dragon whip actually trembled a few times. The dragon whip was firmly grasped by Xiao Bai's big hand. The dragon whip rolled along with the momentum, and like a spear flower, it shook out a large area of spear flowers. The spear flowers did not diminish. Instead, they flew fiercely toward Xiao Bai, full of killing intent. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1422. Xiao Bai still did not loosen his grip. Instead, he continued to incite the flames. With a boom, the flames soared into the sky and flew along the dragon whip to the dragon slayer's arm. At the same time, the spear flower also caused a flower of blood to bloom on Xiao Bai's body. Xiao Bai groaned, but did not loosen his grip. It was risking both of them being injured to give the dragon slayer a fierce blow. Chapter 1423. Pop! A weed broke out from the ground, exuding green vitality. It was like a stone that landed on the mirror-like surface of a lake. In an instant, waves rippled out. Chapter 1424. What was this wondrous gain? It was actually enough to make Tang Jing go wild with joy. Tang Zhang's eyes lit up, and the corners of his mouth involuntarily curled up. He muttered to himself, "Dragon Slayer, your divine dragon swings its tail is only a so-so. I'll let you experience the feeling of the divine dragon swings its tail too." As his voice fell, a golden light extended from Tang Zhang's spine. With a whoosh, the golden light overflowed and soared into the sky. The dragon slayer was dumbfounded and subconsciously cried out in surprise, staring straight at the golden light swaying in midair. This was not a simple golden light, but a dragon tail. Tang Jing could also transform into a dragon tail, because he had cultivated the dragon god mantra and possessed the dragon soul. The dragon tail that he transformed into was a real dragon tail, and not the half-real, half-fake kind of dragon slayer. The dragon slayer stared at the dragon tail with burning eyes, and almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He had expended a lot of energy to conjure the dragon tail, but this brat could actually do it as well, and everything that he had displayed was above him. This was really a case of comparing oneself to others. He really wanted to roar to the sky. Tang Zhang's eyes also emitted a golden light, staring at the dragon slayer like a tiger watching its prey. He roared, "Eat my attack." The power of the divine dragon swings its tail was not inferior to that of the golden dragon at all. In fact, it was even more powerful than the golden dragon. The dragon slayer sucked in a breath of cold air. He had no choice but to fight with all his might. With a whoosh, the golden light flew toward the dragon slayer. Everywhere it passed, the air was dyed golden. It was as if there was only this golden color left between heaven and earth. In the past, Tang Jing definitely could not use this move, but looking at the dragon slayer, he suddenly realized that he could use this kind of divine ability too. It was just that he was blinded and did not think of it at all. He was inspired and naturally used this move of the divine dragon swings its tail, which was extremely powerful. The dragon slayer actually had the intention to retreat, but there was nowhere to retreat. He could only fight back. Without the dragon whip, he had no choice but to use the divine dragon swings its tail. Bang! Just like before, the two golden dragon tails collided. Golden light splattered everywhere, and the wind howled. Kacha! With a shattering sound, golden light burst forth. The dragon slayer's dragon tail had completely disappeared, leaving only Tang Zhang's dragon tail swinging in the air majestically. Without a doubt, the two dragon tails collided. Tang Zhang was victorious and the dragon slayer was defeated. The dragon slayer retreated awkwardly. If he was at his peak, he definitely wouldn't be in such a sorry state. Unfortunately, not only did he have to resist the flames, but he also had to worry about the golden dragon and Xiao Bai's surprise attack, so he couldn't focus on dealing with Tang Jing. Tang Jing also knew this, so he did not think that he had completely won. Dragon slayers definitely had more means to protect themselves. Thus, Tang Jing stepped forward bravely and attacked the dragon slayer like a storm. The dragon slayer had no way out. He roared, "Brat, don't go too far." Tang Zhang was not moved at all. He said jokingly, "When you were dealing with the dragon race, why didn't you think about going too far? You dragon slayers actually wanted to exterminate the entire dragon race for your own selfish interests. This kind of ambition is intolerable, and you still have the nerve to say that I'm going too far." The dragon slayer's face turned red, and he was speechless. Tang Jing followed up with another attack. "The day you exterminated the dragon race, you should have known that you would also have such a day." The dragon slayer snorted coldly and said, "I, the dragon slayer, am incomparably powerful. Do you think you can fight against me with your own strength? Humph, you overestimate yourself. I'm not the only dragon slayer. There are tens of thousands of them. You offended me and became my enemy, which means you became the enemy of all the dragon slayers." The dragon slayer's threat was very serious, causing Tang Jing to subconsciously frown. An idea came to his mind. The dragon slayer was indeed not alone. Although he had only seen this one so far, he had to be on guard against the arrival of other dragon slayers. It was precisely because of this that he could not let this dragon slayer have the chance to go back and report. Otherwise, it would definitely attract even more dragon slayers. At that time, Tang Zhang could only passively take a beating. This world would really reach the end of the world. Don't flatter yourself. Your flattery might be useful against 3-year-old children, but against us, you're not just a little bit lacking. Tang Zhang said sarcastically. The dragon slayer's face alternated between red and white. He was incomparably anxious. "I admit that the other dragon slayers are very powerful. As for how high your position is among the dragon slayers, I'm not interested. But there's one thing I can tell you clearly. Today, you definitely want to leave this place." Tang Zhang said solemnly. "You really want to kill me? Now that things have come to this, could it be that you think you still have a chance to survive?" Tang Zhang asked jokingly. The dragon slayer was speechless. From Tang Zhang's tone and gaze, he had already determined that Tang Zhang's killing intent was resolute. "Killing me won't be that easy," the dragon slayer shouted. He used the same trick again, wanting to escape without a trace. However, whoosh! A figure blocked the dragon slayer's path. However, it was not Tang Jing, but Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai glared at him like a tiger watching its prey. He stretched out his hand and clawed again. His sharp claws pierced towards the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer had been resisting the power of the flames with difficulty. However, Xiao Bai's flames were too powerful. He had no way to completely extinguish them. Just now, he had already extinguished a bit of the flames, but it had consumed most of his power. Therefore, he could only watch helplessly as the claws pierced towards him. He could only retreat. He did not even have the courage to fight. With a pincer attack from the front and back, Tang Jing did not let him go. With a thought, the divine dragon swung its tail. Another golden dragon tail swept down and attacked the dragon slayer. The dragon slayer let out a sharp cry and shouted, "No!" Boom! The dragon tail swept the dragon slayer's body. He was like a kite with a broken string as he flew backwards into the distance. However, Tang Zhang and the other two were like shadows. They did not give the dragon slayer any chance to leave their sight. Before the dragon slayer had even landed on the ground, the three of them had already arrived in front of him. They were ready to launch another fatal attack. The dragon slayer was almost in despair. However, he did not completely give up. From the corner of his eyes, he looked into the distance. A towering mountain peak towered into the clouds. It was like a giant. The dragon slayer recognized this mountain peak. He was pleasantly surprised. His feet were greased as he shuttled through the crowd. Last time, he suffered a great loss on Mount Buzhou. He did not know that it was the divine power of Mount Buzhou. Otherwise, he would not have thought of coming here even if he was beaten to death. In addition, the dragon slayer had his own plans. He had used up too much of his power. He was no longer able to fight against the three of them. He did not want to die. Therefore, he had been searching for a way to escape. Finally, when he saw Mount Buzhou, he immediately fell into deep thought. Then, he was wild with joy. The dragon slayer had seen the power of this world's powerhouses. He did not dare to underestimate them anymore. He wanted to leave this world. Space jumping was the most effective method. And to do this, he had to use Mount Buzhou. Because the dragon slayer had used up too much of his power in consecutive battles. He could not even open the space door. He only had one chapter today. He was not in good spirits. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1425. At that time, no matter how powerful the enemy was, they would not be able to do anything to him. In the future, he would lead the army of dragon slayers to this world and kill all the enemies. No! Not only would he kill the enemies, but he would also destroy this world, just like how he destroyed the home of the dragon clan. Chapter 1426. Tang Zhang's eyes were overflowing with radiance as he exclaimed inwardly. The dragon slayer's power was too powerful. It was like a huge treasure. He continuously absorbed energy, and his meridians gradually filled up like a person who had eaten his fill. Chapter 1427. Suddenly, Yuan Ying's fingers moved. It was very weak, but it did not escape Tang Zhang's attention. What's going on? Tang Zhang was shocked. He stared straight at Yuan Ying to confirm that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. Yuan Ying's fingers were indeed moving. Yuan Ying seemed to have sensed him. She raised her head and stared at him with her bright eyes. Chapter 1428. Tang Zhang's attention could not help but be deeply attracted. He was not someone who had not seen the world. Not only had he seen Xiao Bai open an interspatial door, but he had also seen the dragon slayer open one earlier. Nonetheless, it was completely different this time because the young fellow had opened the interspatial door himself. Previously, he had asked someone else to do it, but this time, he had done it himself. Chapter 1429. He first straightened out his cultivation. He was already a top-notch master at the 4th stage of the Mahayana realm. He had to carefully plan every step to avoid making mistakes. First of all, he already knew the secret of transforming into a martial artist. Naturally, he would not miss such a great opportunity. Chapter 1430. However, this time, it was completely different. The three of them actually did not feel much of anything. This was all thanks to the heavenly chess. If it were not for the fact that the heavenly chess possessed such heaven-defying power, the project of transforming their meridians would have directly led to their deaths, and everything would have been for naught. Tang Jing already understood this, so he continued to incessantly channel the power of the stars, rapidly transforming the meridians of the three people. Chapter 1431. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes at him and said, "You brat, how would you understand my feelings?" Tang Jing rolled his eyes speechlessly and teased, "Why, are you so afraid of being photographed on the beach?" Tian Chanzi snorted and said, "Why would I be afraid of being photographed on the beach? Ridiculous, Tian Chanzi, have been leading the world for thousands of years. How could I be scared by a group of juniors?" Chapter 1432. Mo Xia was the first to speak, asking expectantly, did Tian Chanzi agree? He had always wanted to examine Tian Chanzi's body and see if the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul was still in his body. But Tian Chanzi had flatly refused, so he could only wait. He had already become a loner and only had this sliver of hope. If he didn't wait, there was no other way. Tang Jing knew Mo Xia's thoughts and said, "Tian Chanzi is still considering it. I have other matters to discuss with you." Mo Xia's face immediately revealed a disappointed expression. He made an "oh" sound and asked dully, "What is it?" Other than the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul, he was no longer interested in anything else. "I want to forge a talisman. You are an expert in this field, so I hope to obtain your help." "Forge?" Mo Xia raised his head in shock and stared at him in disbelief. "Yes, I want to forge a treasure sword. The materials are all prepared and everything is ready except for the east wind." Mo Xia laughed dryly, "I'm that east wind. What's so difficult about forging a treasure sword that you need my help with?" Forging talismans was a common thing for cultivators, but forging top-level talismans, such as holy tools, was not so easy. It was not something anyone could do. Tang Jing could only patiently explain, "I want to forge a peerless godly sword." Peerless godly sword. Mo Xia was slightly startled, then he laughed loudly and snorted, "Peerless godly sword, you think you can forge a peerless godly sword just because you shout a slogan?" He had rich experience in forging and knew that a peerless godly sword could only be found by chance. For example, his Ganjiang sword was a peerless godly sword. But in order to forge the Ganjiang sword, he had prepared for a long time. Even the materials were all heavenly treasures and were not common goods. He did not believe that Tang Jing could find materials comparable to the Ganjiang sword. Tang Jing ignored the mockery in Mo Xia's words and said calmly, "Of course I'm not shouting a slogan. Don't master forgers like you always want to forge a peerless talisman? Now that the opportunity is in front of you, you don't want to give it a try. Could it be that you don't dare?" Tang Jing changed his mind at the last minute. Originally, he wanted to persuade Mo Xia with his emotions and reason so that he could ask Mo Xia for help. Now, it seemed that he was not interested in anything other than the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. Since that was the case, then he could only use other methods to move him. Provocation was a good method, and with Mo Xia's intelligence, he would definitely see through it. However, Tang Jing would still do so because he believed that for a master weapon refiner, the temptation of refining a peerless divine weapon was definitely not to be underestimated. As long as Mo Xia saw the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron, she would definitely be interested in helping him. When Mo Xia heard Tang Jing's words, the corners of her mouth curled up in ridicule. She said, "You're underestimating me. Do you think this will work on me?" Tang Jing didn't think much of it and said generously, "Whether it's useful or not depends on what I offer you." Seeing Tang Jing so confident, Mo Xie's interest was instead piqued. She said, "I'd like to see what you can offer me." "Then why don't you come with me and you'll know." Tang Jing walked in a certain direction. Mo Xie hesitated for a moment before following. Not long after, Tang Jing stopped in his tracks. In front of him was a huge sphere, as black as ink. This seemingly ordinary black sphere was the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron. Back then, it had absorbed Dizang of Goguryu's dark side and became like this. From the chains of the past to this huge sphere, the impurities had been completely refined and removed. What was left was the essence of the essence. Mo Xia was originally absent-minded and didn't think much of it. However, when she saw this huge black sphere, her eyes immediately straightened and were deeply attracted. What is this? Although she didn't recognize the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron, she had a pair of fiery eyes and could see that this was definitely not an ordinary item. Even the material she used to refine the Ganjiang sword was slightly inferior. Tang Jing relaxed and smiled as if she already knew that she would take the bait. This is the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron, taken from the ghost realm. Nine Serenities' mysterious iron, taken from the ghost realm. Mo Xia muttered to himself, deeply shocked. Although it was the first time she heard this name, the words, taken from the ghost realm, firmly attracted her. After a long time, her gaze reluctantly moved from the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron to Tang Zhang's face. Her expression changed continuously and was very interesting. "How did you find this Nine Serenities' mysterious iron?" Tang Jing smiled indifferently and said, "You don't need to worry about that. I just want to know if you have the confidence to refine it into a divine weapon." "Of course I have confidence." Mo Xia said without hesitation, "You are doubting the skills and dignity of a master refiner. Ha, even you haven't seen the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron before and you dare to boast like this?" Tang Jing asked. "That's because you don't know my refining level. As long as you give me time, I will properly study the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron. I will definitely be able to make it into a divine weapon." Mo Xia said confidently. "I will refine it now." "Now?" Mo Xia stared at him as if he was looking at an amateur and said, "You are too impatient. I don't even know the properties of the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron. I don't even know what kind of true fire is needed to melt it. You telling me now is the biggest joke in the world." Tang Zheng was still very calm and said, "No matter what kind of true fire you use, you will not be able to melt it. Because it is not something from the human world, true fire will naturally not be able to refine it. That's because your strength is too weak and the quality of your true fire is not good enough." Mo Xia said solemnly, not believing in Tang Zheng's ability. Tang Zheng did not argue and said, "Then you can give it a try." Mo Xia proudly turned his head and activated his power. He extended his palm and a ball of flame jumped in his palm. This ball of flame also attracted Tang Zheng's attention. This ball of flame contained a great amount of power and was a ball of 6th grade true fire. This was the highest quality true fire. For a weapon refining master, this was the most important prerequisite. If one did not have a high-quality true fire, it would be impossible to refine a divine weapon. Mo Xia activated his true fire and with a whoosh, the true fire flew out and accurately landed on top of the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron. Then, the true fire turned into threads and covered the Nine Serenities' mysterious iron like a spider web. The big black ball was immediately covered with a layer of fire. It was dazzling and added a sense of mystery. Tang Zheng was firmly attracted. The weapon refining master's first move was extraordinary and was completely different from his normal refining methods. This time, seeing Mo Xia refine with my own eyes will be of great benefit to me. In the future, when I refine, I will definitely be able to refine even higher quality treasures. Tang Zheng was full of interest as he stared at this scene with shining eyes. Mo Xia proudly raised her head and purposely glanced at Tang Zheng from the corner of her eyes as she teasingly said, "Look carefully, this is true weapon forging. Your previous weapon forging was just child's play." Tang Zheng smiled but did not say anything. He had an expression of watching a good show. Chapter 1433. The mysterious 9 nether iron under the roasting of the true fire reflected a strange light, but it did not melt. In fact, there was not even a trace of melting. Tang Zheng's mouth gradually hooked into a smile as he looked at Mo Xia with interest. Mo Xia's expression also had a subtle change. Previously, he had vowed that refining the mysterious 9 nether iron would be a piece of cake. But after a long time without any reaction, he finally realized that something was wrong. From the corner of his eyes, he caught a glimpse of Tang Zheng's expression and his heart skipped a beat. He clenched his teeth and made up his mind. "I don't believe that I can't handle this mysterious 9 nether iron." He gathered his strength, the light of the true fire constantly flickering, determined to refine the mysterious 9 nether iron. After a long time, the mysterious 9 nether iron still did not have any reaction. His expression finally changed again and again, becoming very ugly and even a bit resentful, as if saying, "Why can't my true fire refine this big black ball?" Tang Zheng finally opened his mouth. "How is it? How much longer do you need me to wait?" Mo Xia raised his head and looked at him with a complicated expression, as if he was thinking about what to say. After a while, he said, "Why are you in such a hurry? I've only just started." Tang Zheng laughed dryly. Is that so? But so much time has already passed, you're taking too long to warm up." After a slight pause, he quickly changed the topic. "Don't waste your energy, you can't refine it." Mo Xia was clearly not convinced and rolled his eyes. For a master refiner, not being able to refine a raw material was the greatest shame. This mysterious 9 nether iron is not something that true fire can refine. Tang Zheng said decisively. Mo Xia said in disbelief, "Then if it can't be refined, what kind of peerless divine weapon are you going to use it to refine?" "Of course I have a way." Tang Zheng said mysteriously. "What way?" "You'll see in a moment." Tang Zheng suppressed Mo Xia's arrogance and no longer kept him in suspense. "Come with me, I'll let you see." Tang Zheng's thoughts moved and the surrounding scenery quickly changed. In a flash, they had already left Sumera Heavens and arrived in the secret room. When Li Xiaotian saw Mo Xia, his pupils couldn't help but shrink. Mo Xia's attention was not on Li Xiaotian, but on Tang Zheng. In Sumera world, Tang Zheng was only a strand of divine sense, so she could not see anything. However, in the real world, Mo Xia immediately discovered the subtlety. He stared at Tang Zheng without blinking his eyes. His voice also rose by several decibels as he cried out involuntarily, How did your cultivation increase again?" He was actually unable to see through Tang Zheng's cultivation. Without a doubt, this was a sign that his cultivation had increased. Back then, he could still see through Tang Zheng's cultivation, but in just a few short weeks, what exactly happened that made Tang Zheng's cultivation advance by leaps and bounds? Tang Zheng smiled but did not say anything, pretending to be mysterious. Mo Xia knew that even if he asked, he would not get an answer, but his thoughts had completely changed. If it was before, he could still look down on Tang Zheng, but now he absolutely did not have the slightest bit of such thoughts. Tang Zheng did not use the Yellow Emperor's remnant soul to threaten him, and he could not threaten Tang Zheng at all, so his status was even lower. Of course, if the Yellow Emperor was resurrected, this situation would change. Mo Xia's gaze turned slightly, inadvertently falling on Li Xiaotian's body, and his pupils once again widened. He blinked his eyes to confirm that he wasn't seeing things. He really couldn't see through her cultivation. He had never placed Li Xiaotian in his eyes. After all, a small martial artist might be very powerful to an ordinary person. However, in his eyes, Li Xiaotian was not much different from an ordinary person. Why couldn't he see through her? Wasn't she just a martial artist? He could not figure it out no matter how much he thought about it, and his expression naturally did not look any better. Li Xiaotian's mind was sharp. Her eyelids twitched and she saw some clues in his heart, but she did not pay attention to his shock. Mo Xiao looked at Li Xiaotian, and then turned to look at Tang Jing. These two juniors, he could not see through them. This was too strange. He really wanted to ask again and get to the bottom of it. However, he swallowed the words back down. If he really got to the bottom of it, the other party might not tell the truth, and the one who would lose face would be him. When he thought of this, he forcibly suppressed his impulse, but it was difficult to conceal the stormy waves that surged in his heart. Tang Jing also saw through his thoughts, and smiled without saying anything. In his heart, the more mysterious he was, the more intimidating he was, so he did not dare to act rashly. Mo Xia took a deep breath and changed the topic. Otherwise, his little heart might really break. Didn't you say that you can refine the mysterious underworld iron? How do you refine it? Tang Jing did not directly answer, but said, there is still a soul in the mysterious underworld iron. This soul is extraordinary. Do you have the confidence to control it during the refining process and turn it into an artifact spirit? Soul. Mo Xia's eyes widened in curiosity, staring at the mysterious underworld iron in the secret room as if he could see through it. However, after carefully staring at it for a long time, he could not see where the soul was. In fact, he could not even sense it. For an artifact refining grandmaster, this was not a small blow. Fortunately, he had suffered several blows in a row just now, and had become numb. He simply did not ask any more questions, and let Tang Jing continue. Tang Jing laughed in his heart and continued, this soul is very strong. If you are not careful and let him escape from his bindings, not only you, even I will not be able to do anything to him. Furthermore, none of us here will be able to leave this place alive. Mo Xia's heart trembled. He knew that Tang Jing did not have to deliberately lie to scare him. He really wanted to ask where Tang Jing found such a fierce character. However, he did not ask, but sighed and said, if you use such a powerful soul as the artifact spirit of the sword, then how powerful will the artifact refining be? This will depend on the results of everyone's cooperation. Tang Jing was also unable to give an answer. In fact, this was a risky move, but this risk was worth it. Mo Xia's heart was bewildered. After a long time, he finally said, all right, I'll do it. I want to see what kind of peerless artifact refining will be. As an artifact refining grandmaster, witnessing or personally refining a peerless artifact refining was a huge temptation. Tang Jing finally smiled. Although he had already expected this result, hearing it with his own ears, the stone in his heart finally fell to the ground. Then we will begin now. You will witness the birth of a true peerless artifact refining. Tang Jing said in an imposing manner, giving Li Xiaotian a look. Li Xiaotian nodded slightly, walked in front of the mysterious 9 underworlds iron, stretched out his hands, and a ball of flame burned between his hands. Ha! Mo Xiao looked curiously at this ball of ghost fire. With his eyesight, he immediately determined that this was not true fire. For a martial artist to be able to summon such a strange flame, it was very strange. Tang Jing looked at Mo Xia and explained, this is ghost fire. Only it can refine the mysterious 9 underworlds iron. Ghost fire, isn't that also an item from the ghost realm? Mo Xia asked in surprise. Tang Jing nodded. Mo Xia's heart became more and more shocked. How could an item from the ghost realm be used by a living person? This Li Xiaotian also hid many secrets. The younger generation will surpass us in time. While speaking, Li Xiaotian urged the ghost fire to wrap around the mysterious 9 underworlds iron. The black light constantly flickered, and not long after, the mysterious 9 underworlds iron was like melted candy, transforming from a solid state to a liquid state. After a while, the mysterious 9 underworlds iron completely transformed into a liquid state, but it did not flow in all directions. Instead, it was still a big black ball. The liquid mysterious 9 underworlds iron was constantly rotating, like a small snake circling in place. This scene deeply attracted the 3 people, and they stared at it with wide eyes. Shwa! Suddenly, a ray of light rushed out from the mysterious 9 underworlds iron. The mysterious 9 underworlds iron bulged, as if something was trying to rush out from the mysterious 9 underworlds iron. Tang Zheng's heart trembled as he shouted, "Be careful." His mouth muttered some words, and golden Sanskrit words flew out, condensing into a golden swastika character in the air, covering the mysterious 9 underworlds iron. The bulge immediately subsided, disappearing little by little. It was the first time Mo Xie had seen such an amazing scene, and he was even more surprised by the Sanskrit words that Tang Zheng was muttering. The terrifying power contained in the golden swastika character made his heart beat faster. "That soul wants to rush out?" Mo Xie asked. He could tell at a glance. Tang Zheng nodded. "Yes, we must not let it rush out." Dizang of Goguryeo once said that the strength of the dark side would increase day by day, and it could not be trapped in the mysterious 9 underworlds iron forever, so he could not help but worry about the possibility of the dark side rushing out. Mo Xie nodded thoughtfully. "No wonder, we must be very careful." He was not scared off, but instead became more interested. With such a powerful soul as the artifact spirit, the magic weapon refined would definitely be extraordinary. Creating such a peerless divine weapon from his own hands would be a very satisfying thing. The rest of the work will depend on the 2 of us. Tang Zheng stretched out his hand and a furnace appeared in his palm. It quickly changed, and he gently threw it. The moment the furnace fell to the ground, it returned to its original appearance. The 9 revolving pill furnace, this was the furnace he used to refine weapons. Although there was a master refiner like Mo Xie, Tang Zheng would not just sit back and do nothing. With the 2 of them working together, he would be able to learn many things. Moreover, if Mo Xie was the only one refining, what if he tampered with it and the refined weapon became Mo Xie's? Then wouldn't he have suffered a double loss? He definitely would not allow this to happen. Mo Xie looked at the 9 revolving pill furnace with contempt and said, "With this little furnace, you want to refine a peerless divine weapon. Can't I?" Tang Zheng asked back. Mo Xie forcibly suppressed the word "can't." From a professional point of view, it was not impossible. It was just a bit more troublesome. Mo Xie gave Tang Zheng a deep look as if she was deep in thought. She immediately understood his intentions and knew that he was on guard against him. But he had no way to resist, so he coldly snorted and said, "Then let's begin." Tang Zheng activated the 9 revolving pill furnace, and the carvings of birds, fish, and insects on the outside seemed to come alive, swimming around. Chapter 1434. The mysterious 9 serenities iron flew into the 9 revolving pill furnace and a burst of black light immediately shot up into the sky. A buzzing sound came from the furnace like a clap of thunder, causing people's hearts to be filled with fear. Mo Xie's eyes were bright and full of expression as he stared at the furnace. Under his gaze, thousands of changes were occurring within the furnace. The liquid mysterious 9 serenities iron seemed to have a life of its own as it continuously rotated like the earth. Traces of ghost fire penetrated the mysterious 9 serenities iron, and not long after, it had already merged into the core area. Mo Xie personally witnessed the power of the ghost fire and was extremely shocked. Tang Zheng glanced at him and said, "Your main task is to find a way to merge that soul into my divine sword." Mo Xie recovered from his shock and looked up at him, urging, "Don't waste time. When Tang Zheng heard this, he silently circulated his energy. Just like before when he was refining treasures, he quickly began to act. The liquid mysterious 9 serenities iron was stretched out by the energy he released, little by little forming the shape of a sword. However, things were not that simple and an unexpected change immediately occurred. The dark side of the Dezong of Goguryeo in the black sphere flared up like a malignant tumor, immediately blocking the mysterious 9 serenities iron, causing Tang Zheng to be unable to continue stretching it. Naturally, the divine sword would not be able to form. What do we do? Mo Xia was helpless and could only ask for help from Tang Zheng, looking at him with a burning gaze. Tang Zheng calmly smiled and casually said, "Leave it to me." He chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra and a lotus flew out from his mouth. A lotus flower bloomed in his mouth. After Tang Zheng's cultivation increased, his comprehension of the Ksitigarbha Sutra also increased to another level. After chanting the Ksitigarbha Sutra, his reaction was also completely different. When he saw the golden light of the lotus flower, Mo Xia's heart trembled. He thought that this brat had too many tricks up his sleeve and the power of this lotus flower could not be underestimated. He even more so did not dare to slight Tang Zheng. Tang Zheng naturally did not know that there was such an unexpected effect. He only wanted to use the Ksitigarbha Sutra to suppress the dark side of Dezong of Goguryeo. The lotus was more powerful than the individual Sanskrit words. It quickly suppressed the dark side of Dezong of Goguryeo, and the blocked area was slowly unblocked. Not long after, the 9 underworld mysterious iron was elongated, and the prototype of the divine sword had already taken shape. Mo Xia couldn't help but take a few more glances at Tang Zheng. He could clearly feel the power of that soul, but Tang Zheng's brilliant lotus flower was able to suppress it so easily. This skill was truly not ordinary. That being said, the process was far from simple. The dark side of Dezong of Goguryeo would definitely make a comeback. This was the consensus of all of them. Hiss! A sharp cry rang out. The dark side that had ceased all activities was struggling with all its might. This cry came from him. This voice seemed to have a soul-stirring charm, causing one's heart to sway. Mo Xia's frown deepened. He was too curious as to who this soul belonged to. A normal soul would not be so powerful. Tang Zheng's heart trembled. He urged Mo Xia, "Don't just look. Think of a way to fuse the soul with the sword." Mo Xia glanced at him. His hands formed a seal and he muttered something. Although they were so close, Tang Zheng could not clearly hear what he was chanting. But it was definitely some kind of secret technique. Its power immediately manifested. A ray of light shot out from his hand and attached itself to the 9 underworld mysterious iron. It slowly seeped in. This ray of light could penetrate the 9 underworld mysterious iron. It was obvious how powerful it was. This is a bit interesting. Tang Zheng's eyes lit up as he stared at the 9 underworld mysterious iron. Especially that ray of light. When the ray of light came into contact with the dark side of Dezong of Goguryeo, the dark side clearly rejected it and instantly repelled the ray of light. Hiss! Mo Xia sucked in a breath of cold air. He seemed to be shocked by the counterattack of the dark side. His eyes flickered and gradually became firm. He did not say a word. His expression was incomparably serious and even somewhat gloomy. Boom! The ray of light approached the dark side again. This time, it did not directly clash with the dark side. When it did not directly touch the dark side, the ray of light stopped and began to rotate on its own. In an instant, a small vortex of stars was formed. Although the 9 underworld mysterious iron was incomparably black, this ray of light was very dazzling, so Tang Zheng could clearly see everything. This vortex seemed to have magical power. The dark side was directly sucked into the black hole. Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian looked at each other. There was some surprise in their eyes. They had seen the power of the dark side. They did not expect it to be unable to resist this vortex. What kind of magic did this vortex have? Mo Xia confidently curled up a mysterious smile. He thought to himself, this is my exclusive refining technique. It is specially used to fuse souls and magic treasures. It is simply the nemesis of souls. How can it not be able to do anything to him? Tang Zheng did not see the specific magic, but he knew that there was a glimmer of hope. Thus, he quickly calmed his mind and chanted the Ksitigarbha Sutra, continuing to suppress the dark side. Under the pressure from both sides, the dark side was immediately at a disadvantage. The bulge slowly disappeared. Under the contrast of Mo Xia's light, the dark side was visible to the naked eye. It was a small ball of strange light. It was like ink, but it was fundamentally different from the 9 underworld mysterious iron. As long as one looked carefully, they would be able to see the difference between the two. Withdraw. Suddenly, Mo Xia roared. His entire body emitted a faint light. The vortex rapidly rotated faster and faster, and the suction force became stronger and stronger. The dark side was sucked in with a whoosh, as if it was about to be completely sucked into the vortex. Suddenly, the dark side stopped, as if it had hit the brakes. It dangerously stopped beside the vortex, just a little bit more and it would be sucked in. Mo Xia's expression immediately became gloomy. This result was outside of his expectations. In his original expectations, the dark side was successfully sucked into the vortex. Tang Zheng's expression was normal. After all, he was very clear about the power of the dark side. Any situation or accident would not be excessive. Mo Xia clenched his teeth. He was competing with the dark side. He had already boasted. If he gave up halfway and failed, that would be a great humiliation. He took a deep breath. The light on his body became more and more intense. It was as if he wanted to completely suck the dark side into the vortex in one go. This vortex was out of the ordinary. Once the dark side was sucked in, it would completely fuse with the magic tool. This was because this was the most crucial point in refining. This vortex was the bridge between the soul and the magic tool. How dare you refine me and make me the tool spirit? A hysterical and bone-chilling voice suddenly rang out. Tang Zheng's heart tightened. This was the voice of the dark side of Dezong of Goguryeo. He was forced to the final juncture and had no choice but to speak. He was imprisoned by the 9 underworld mysterious iron and suppressed by the Ksitigarbha Sutra. He had to bear the double pressure. Under this kind of situation, he was still able to speak. Apart from his profound cultivation, he had also used up a large portion of his strength. This was his last chance to speak. If he did not succeed, he would never have the chance to speak again. The dark side was very clear about this, so he had no choice but to do this. This sound shocked Mo Xia, and he subconsciously relaxed his guard. The dark side saw the opportunity and quickly retreated. Stop! Seeing this, Tang Zheng hurriedly shouted to stop. If the dark side really escaped, it would be a big problem. Li Xiaotian was also very clear about this. He hurriedly shouted, quickly stop him. Mo Xia finally came back to his senses and asked loudly, who is he? I am the Dezong of Goguryeo. If you act so recklessly, you will suffer a calamity and suffer my monstrous anger. The dark side continued to scare people. Mo Xia's expression changed again and again. It was already extremely ugly. Who is the Dezong of Goguryeo? He had never heard of this name before. But just from the situation at the scene, he could already tell that the Dezong of Goguryeo was not an ordinary person. You actually don't know who I am. The dark side was very angry. In this world, there was actually someone who did not know his great name. Tang Zheng was also stunned for a moment, and then he came to a realization. It was not strange that Mo Xia did not know, because he was a person from tens of thousands of years ago. At that time, the Dezong of Goguryeo might not have appeared. Even if he appeared, the understanding between the two worlds was very little. Mo's heart palpitated, but he was not frightened. His eyes became firm, and he said sternly, "So what if you are the Dezong of Goguryeo? If I, Mo's want to refine a magic treasure, no one can stop me." Whoosh! He stretched out his finger and pointed at the 9 serenities mysterious iron. Blood flew out from the tip of his finger. It was incomparably red and fell on the 9 serenities mysterious iron. Immediately, a line of blood appeared on the 9 serenities mysterious iron. It kept changing and finally turned into a blood talisman. The blood talisman attached to the vortex and disappeared in a flash. The vortex's light increased greatly, and there was a trace of blood light in it. "What did you do?" The dark side screamed, but it was useless. With a whoosh, he flew toward the vortex and no longer had the strength to resist. The screams became more and more intense, echoing in the secret room as if they could pierce people's eardrums. Li Xiaotian subconsciously covered his ears with both hands. Tang Jing frowned and used his qi to dissolve all of this. Mo's heart was in his throat. This was a battle that concerned his reputation. If he lost, then he would not have the face to say that he knew how to refine weapons. He would not even have the courage to continue refining weapons. Seeing the dark side approaching the vortex step by step, his heart almost jumped out of his chest. Tang Zhang was a smart person and immediately guessed the clues. This was a critical moment, and success or failure depended on this. His breathing quickened, and his gaze was firmly attracted to this scene. "Break! What are you looking at? Hurry up and form the sword." Mo Xia urged Tang Zhang. Tang Jing felt as if he had just awoken from a dream, as this was not the time to watch a show. He hurriedly activated his inner energy and controlled the 9 revolving pill furnace. Bit by bit, he used his energy on the 9 revolving pill furnace, refining the 9 serenities mysterious iron step by step. There was no doubt that the refining process this time was more difficult than any of the previous times. It was more significant, and he comprehended more things. When he saw the sword form, the joy in his heart was like a bomb, exploding and merging into his every cell. He was incomparably happy. Chapter 1435. After the long sword was formed, only the weapon spirit was left. If the weapon spirit was formed, then the soul must be integrated into the sword body. Dezong of Goguryeo's dark side had been attracted to the edge of the whirlpool. The whirlpool was getting faster and faster, and the dark side had no way to escape. "I hate." The dark side dragged out the last word. It could no longer struggle and was sucked into the whirlpool. Chapter 1436. When the divine weapon was completed, there was a sound in his mind, because the weapon spirit and sword spirit had appeared. He could clearly feel the existence of the weapon spirit, and that lively voice clearly entered his ears. This voice was still Dezong of Goguryeo's voice, but it was less gloomy and more lively. The resounding sword cry calmed down. "Master." The sword spirit respectfully called out. Tang Zheng was in a trance. Dezong of Goguryeo actually called him master, although it was the dark side of Dezong of Goguryeo, but it was also a part of Dezong of Goguryeo. He took a deep breath, and once again focused his attention on the dense qi. The sharp sword qi and light gradually dissipated, leaving behind a dense fog. Whing! Another strange sound came out from the dense qi. This was not the sword cry, but another sound. 9 revolving pill furnace. Tang Jing secretly exclaimed in his heart as he saw through the true identity of this voice. The divine sword had been completed, and the 9 revolving pill furnace had also been affected, soaring to the sky, directly leveling up. This was all due to the divine sword. The refining process would also receive feedback. If a peerless divine weapon was refined, then the user would benefit greatly, and even advance by leaps and bounds. This was a process that complemented each other. The materials for a peerless divine weapon were naturally not ordinary goods. When refining, the furnace would also absorb the spiritual energy and energy of these materials. But the 9 revolving pill furnace would benefit and advance to the next realm. This was something that could not be estimated. Wang wang. The sound of the 9 revolving pill furnace became more and more vigorous, like the sound of a mighty army's horn, and also like the sound of surging waves. Tang Zhang's heart also surged with waves, as he stared at the dense qi without blinking. Suddenly, a ray of light shot out, illuminating the large secret room, as if a burst of fresh fragrance assaulted his senses. Tang Zhang's head twitched. He knew that the puzzle was about to be solved. The dense qi gradually dissipated in all directions, but the multicolored light still filled the secret room. When the dense qi completely dissipated, the multicolored light shone on Tang Jing, adding a lot of mystery to him. The 9 revolving alchemy furnace slowly rotated, gradually slowing down. The birds, beasts, flowers, plants, fish, and insects seemed to be on the verge of coming out of the furnace. Tang Jing stared at the 9 revolving alchemy furnace. Suddenly, his eyes lit up and he exclaimed, "The 9 revolving alchemy furnace has become a heaven-grade magic treasure." It was once a heaven-grade transcendent artifact, but it was destroyed later on, and its grade dropped too much. Could it be that it had now recovered its original appearance, and actually advanced to become a heaven-grade transcendent artifact? Tang Zheng was pleasantly surprised as he stared at the 9 revolving pill furnace with anticipation. However, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "This is a sacred artifact. Sacred weapon." Tang Zheng was stunned for a moment. Looking at the source of the voice, it was actually Mo Xia. With his fiery eyes and rich experience, he was able to see through the mystery with a single sentence. The 9 revolving alchemy furnace was originally not a heaven-grade transcendent artifact. If that was the case, then wouldn't it be in a much better condition than before? Then it would be able to refine even more powerful transcendent artifacts. This was not the least bit inferior to an offensive transcendent artifact. In fact, it might even be better. As for what grade of transcendent artifact the 9 revolving alchemy furnace could refine, it was still unknown. Since it was a sacred artifact, then what about its transcendent artifact spirit? Tang Jing quickly circulated his qi, but he did not discover the transcendent artifact spirit. He immediately frowned and circulated his qi. He had to find out what was going on. But in the end, he gave up. This was because he did not feel the transcendent artifact spirit. Aside from the 9 revolving alchemy furnace's qi and quality being higher than before, there was nothing special about it. He turned his head to look at Mo Xia and directly asked, "Why can't I feel its transcendent artifact spirit %3F? Mo Xia gave a meaningful smile and said, "This is the unordinary part of transcendent artifacts. Let me ask you first, what do you think is the difference between transcendent artifacts and other transcendent artifacts?" Tang Jing tilted his head and looked at him suspiciously. After a while, he muttered to himself, "Between the two, besides their different uses, what else is different?" Seeing that Tang Jing did not hit the nail on the head, Mo Xia proudly said, "I thought you knew everything, but it seems like you are only a layman when it comes to transcendent artifacts." Tang Jing blushed with shame. Transcendent artifacts were all taught to him by Tian Chanzi. The other part was comprehended by him himself. This was equivalent to an unorthodox method. There was no systematic learning or training. He could not help but admit that Mo Xia was worthy of being called a transcendent artifact master. From Tang Zheng's level, he was able to deduce that he was a layman. Although this sentence was not pleasant to hear, it was the genuine truth. He did not know much about transcendent artifacts. Many aspects were taken for granted. There was no systematic knowledge or learning. He was not ashamed to ask and humbly asked for advice. "In your opinion, what is the difference between the two?" Mo Xia smiled but did not speak. Seeing that Tang Jing was indeed humbly asking for advice, he mysteriously said after a while, "Of course there is a difference. Normally, when a transcendent artifact reaches the transcendent artifact level, the transcendent artifact spirit will automatically jump out. Therefore, there is no need to look for the transcendent artifact spirit. It will be easy to find the transcendent artifact spirit, such as your sword spirit." Tang Jing slightly nodded. He was very clear about this point, but there must be some inside mystery that he did not know. As expected, Mo Xia changed the topic and said, "However, transcendent artifacts are completely different from ordinary transcendent artifacts. When it reaches the transcendent artifact level, its transcendent artifact spirit will not appear on its own. The transcendent artifact spirit will not appear on its own." Tang Zhang's eyes widened in astonishment. This was the first time he had heard of such a theory. Mo Xia did not care about his reaction. Instead, he smiled and pointed at the 9 revolving pill furnace and said, "Do you see the vivid and lifelike carvings on its walls?" Tang Jing nodded. Of course he saw it. It was as if it was coming to life. Even a blind person could see it. Only, what did this have to do with them? He really could not figure it out. He could only ask, "What is going on?" Mo Xia mysteriously said, "The artifact spirit of the refining treasure is hidden in this mural. The refining process of a refining treasure is extraordinary, and the birds and beasts in this mural are not that simple. Many of them are real souls that have entered the 9 revolving alchemy furnace and were refined into this shape. Real souls of birds and beasts." Tang Zheng was shocked. This was the first time he had heard of such a thing. He had always thought that these were just lifeless carvings. He never thought that there would be such a bizarre inside story. Your transcendent artifact spirit is hidden in one of the souls. If you want to find it, you must understand these souls well. Only then will you be able to find the transcendent artifact spirit. Mo Xia said. Find the transcendent artifact spirit from all these souls? Tang Jing did not know whether to laugh or cry. He thought that he had succeeded and the other matters were not worth mentioning. He never thought that there would be such a complicated matter. Then how would he find it? Chapter 1437. When Mo Xia heard Tang Zheng's question and saw his anxious appearance, he lightly said, "This is something I can't help with. The 9 revolving pill furnace is your artifact and only you understand it the best. Finding the artifact spirit from these spirits is your job and only you can do it." Tang Jing shook his head and looked at him deeply, not wasting his energy to ask. Mo Xia's attitude was already very clear. No matter how he asked, there would be no result, so there was no need to waste his breath. His eyes moved from the outside of the 9 revolving pill furnace to the inside. He immediately locked onto an item that was emitting a sharp aura. A sword was silently floating in the middle of the cauldron, emitting a mysterious luster. It also had an irresistible aura. His gaze was firmly attracted to her, and he couldn't take his eyes off of her at all. Mo Xia and Li Xiaotian's eyes were also attracted to it. After a long time, Mo Xia exclaimed, "It really is a peerless divine sword." If he made such a claim, then it was even more obvious that this divine weapon was extraordinary. Li Xiaotian smiled brilliantly. He was even happier than if he had obtained a divine weapon. He happily looked at Tang Jing. Tang Jing suppressed the excitement in his heart and stretched out his hand. When his hand reached above the 9 revolving pill furnace, the godly general began to tremble non-stop and the sword hum became even louder and louder like thunder. "Come!" Tang Jing roared and his 5 fingers grasped the air. With a "so" sound, the divine sword seemed to have a reaction and flew into his palm. The moment the divine sword fell into his palm, he felt as if his flesh and blood were connected. He and the sword seemed to have become one, man and sword as one. Mo Xia and Li Xiaotian stared at him. Seeing his expression change, Li Xiaotian hurriedly asked with concern, "How is it?" Mo Xia was very experienced and asked with great interest, "Do you have a very wonderful feeling that you have never had with other magic treasures?" Tang Jing pondered for a moment and nodded. How did you know? I'm a master blacksmith. Of course I know. Mo Xie said meaningfully, his gaze turning deep. Back then, when I forged the Ganjiang sword, I had the same feeling. This feeling of being connected to one's bones can only be felt by magic treasures refined with one's own blood. When the answer was revealed, Tang Jing suddenly realized that it was because of his efforts. It is precisely because of this that the power of magic treasures is even greater. Of course, if a normal person wants to use their heart's blood to refine a magic treasure, that is only a fool's dream. Only a true master refiner can do this. Mo Xie said with pride. Tang Jing rolled his eyes. Wasn't that a compliment? Mo Xie wasn't embarrassed at all and continued to speak. This magic treasure of yours has fused with your blood. Aside from you, no one else can use it. This is the uniqueness of a magic treasure refined with one's own blood. Only I can use it. Tang Jing was shocked by this news. If that was the case, then he wouldn't have to worry about the magic treasure being stolen by others. The War Soul sword being taken away by Qi Yu had always made Tang Jing brooding. Now that he didn't have to worry about this problem, of course it was a blessing. Mo Xie stared straight at Tang Jing and said, that is indeed the case. Isn't happiness coming too suddenly? Tang Jing took a deep breath and suppressed the excitement in his heart. He said, that is indeed the case. Then you have to remember that it was me who urged this matter. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have been able to forge a peerless divine weapon with such powerful materials. Instead, you would have destroyed it. Mo Xie bluntly reminded. Tang Jing looked at him thoughtfully and said in a deep voice, don't worry, I will naturally remember this. As for your request, I also know. I will persuade Tian Chanzi to agree to your request. If this peerless divine weapon didn't have such an effect, he wouldn't have made this promise. After all, the two of them were originally opponents. But this divine weapon had exceeded his expectations. Mo Xie's role in it was undeniable and he couldn't ignore it at all. He was a person who would repay a little bit of kindness with a drop of water. Mo Xie had indeed helped him a lot, so he would naturally repay Mo Xie. After Mo Xie heard these words, he was extremely excited. His eyes lit up and he said with anticipation, then I will wait for your good news. I hope you will not forget what you said today. He was very clear that his hopes were all placed on Tang Jing. If not for his help, Tian Chanzi would definitely not agree to his request. Thus, he worked so hard to refine the divine weapon for Tang Jing. Furthermore, he even answered his questions and pointed out the key points. Seeing that Tang Jing didn't seem to be lying, Mo Xie was overjoyed and said, now you can name your divine weapon. Name? Tang Jing stared blankly for a moment. He couldn't help but laugh. He had almost forgotten such an important process. Divine weapons were the same as people. Refining a divine weapon was equivalent to being born. Giving a command was equivalent to giving a name to a person. This name would be its code name in the future and would accompany it for life. A good name would resound in Ding Dang. It would be enough to intimidate the enemy and shake the world. Thus, he couldn't be careless about naming. His expression became serious. His gaze was like water as he looked at the divine sword. Although the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron was completely black, the divine weapon forged was not completely black. Instead, there was a sparkling light flowing around it, making it even more mysterious. Li Xiaotian looked at him nervously and advised, you don't have to rush this matter. Tang Jing shook his head. He didn't comment. He stared at the divine sword and thought, this divine sword is made from the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. The weapon spirit is the dark side of Dizang of Goguryeo. It is the result of the combination of the two. Why don't I name it Hidden Mysterious Sword? Hidden Mysterious Sword. He repeated it 3 times in his heart. The more he listened, the better it sounded. His eyes couldn't help but light up. He gradually made a decision and said loudly, "From now on, it will be called Hidden Mysterious Sword." Hidden Mysterious Sword. Mo Xia and Li Xiaotian frowned slightly. Immediately, Li Xiaotian relaxed his brows. He obviously understood the meaning of the name. She pondered for a moment and nodded happily. This name is not bad. It has a profound meaning. Mo Xia curled his lips. He didn't agree. But seeing that Tang Jing had already made up his mind, he naturally wouldn't raise any objections. After all, it wasn't his sword. Tang Jing gently stroked the divine sword and whispered, "From now on, your name will be Hidden Mysterious Sword." "Yes, Master." "Thank you, Master, for bestowing this name." The sword spirit replied. It buzzed and trembled. The sword didn't stop humming. Rays of light surged from the sword body. It was overflowing with light and was incomparably sharp. It made people not dare to look at it. Tang Jing felt the same way. He could clearly feel the joy of the hidden mysterious sword. He raised the hidden mysterious sword up high and lightly slashed. Whoosh! A ray of sword chi broke through the air. It was about to hit the wall of the secret room. With this force, the wall would collapse immediately. The secret room wouldn't be safe. But what was surprising was that the moment the sword chi was about to touch the wall, it disappeared. It was as if it had never appeared. Good sword. Mo Xia couldn't help but praise loudly. He was a sword expert. He could see the clues. Don't look at how the sword chi didn't destroy the wall. It seemed to be at the end of the line. However, in reality, it was Tang Jing who controlled the hidden mysterious sword to the point of perfection. It was wonderful to the point of perfection. That was why he could do this. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1438. Hearing Mo Xia praise the hidden mysterious sword as a good sword, Tang Jing smiled and said, "Thank you, the hidden mysterious sword is indeed a rarely seen good sword." Mo Xia faintly sighed and said, "As a person who is obsessed with swordsmanship, I have to say, I am very jealous of you for having such a peerless sword." "I will take your words as a compliment." Tang Jing said with a smile. His mood was very good. His finger lightly flicked the hidden mysterious sword. A melodious sound of collision entered the ear. "Hidden mysterious sword, from now on, you and I will fight side by side. Any strong enemy will be defeated under your 3-foot-long sword," Tang Jing said to the sword spirit. The sword spirit was awe-inspiring, with a fierce aura said, "Yes, Master." Tang Jing, congratulations. Li Xiaotian sincerely congratulated. Tang Jing tenderly looked at her and slightly nodded, "Thank you." Tang Jing held the sword with one hand, proudly standing, his heart surging with a strong desire and impulse to fight. He really wanted to find someone to fight for 300 rounds, only then would he not disappoint the birth of the peerless sword. This impulse became stronger and stronger, difficult to suppress. His gaze unconsciously fell on Mo Xia. Mo Xia saw a bit of coldness in his eyes from the flames of battle, unconsciously took a step back and cautiously asked, "What do you want to do?" Tang Jing said with a smile that was not a smile, "You will fight with me." "You want me to fight with you?" Mo Xia pointed at his nose, feeling incomparably absurd. There was actually someone who took the initiative to ask him, the Yellow Emperor's #1 general, to fight with him. Tang Jing did not pay attention to the shock in Mo Xia's heart and said, "Yes, how about it?" Mo Xia hesitated for a moment, then immediately shook his head like a rattled drum and said, "I will not agree to your powerless request." Yes, this was a provocation to him. If it was before, he would definitely teach the opponent a lesson without hesitation, making the opponent pay the price for his crazy actions. But at this moment, he did not have any such thoughts. His only thought was to not fight with Tang Jing. Not only was he unable to see through Tang Jing's cultivation level, but the hidden mystic sword also made him timid, not daring to act rashly. Tang Jing didn't expect Mo Xie to reject him so bluntly. He asked suspiciously, "Why not?" Mo Xie rolled her eyes at him and said, "I'm not a sparring partner." Tang Jing was neither angry nor anxious. He asked calmly, "Are you sure you don't want to fight me? I'm afraid that Tian Chanzi won't agree to your request." As soon as the 3 words Tian Chanzi came out, Mo Xie's nerves immediately tensed up. Huffing and puffing, she said, "Are you threatening me? You can think of it that way." Tang Jing shrugged and did not deny it. Mo Xie was so angry that she almost stomped her feet. Flustered and exasperated, she said, "Didn't you just promise me to persuade Tian Chanzi?" "Yes, I will persuade him, but that doesn't mean I won't raise any other opinions," Tang Jing added. That one sentence poked at Mo Xie's weak spot. He panted like an ox and came back to his senses after a while. Gnashing his teeth, he said, "You win." Li Xiaotian looked at the two and couldn't help but laugh. He felt even more proud of his beloved. Not long ago, if Tang Jing had said that, Mo Xie would definitely not have been lenient and would have killed him. Now, he no longer dared to fight with Tang Jing. The earth-shaking changes in this short period of time had already explained everything. Tang Jing was too strong, enough to make Mo Xie fearful. "Then you make your move." Mo Xie took a stance and fiercely glared at Tang Jing. He looked as if he had nothing left to live for. Tang Jing raised the hidden mystic sword up high. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A few slashes were sent out, but they were not aimed at Mo Xie. Instead, the sword light flew to several corners of the room. The sword light disappeared and the atmosphere in the room underwent a subtle change. Mo Xie's pupils suddenly constricted. She looked around and furrowed her brows. She seemed to be deep in thought. Finally, she said meaningfully, "You laid down a formation to protect this secret room?" Tang Jing did not hide his praise. "Smart. You saw through the mystery with a single glance." Now that his power had greatly increased and he had the hidden sword technique, he was able to set up a simple formation with ease. This secret room seemed to have become a paradise. The outside world couldn't detect the situation inside the secret room at all. Li Xiaotian looked left and right. He also saw a bit of mystery, but he did not see it as clearly as Mo Xie. Mo Xie's face was as calm as water. He took a step forward and walked towards Tang Jing. Tang Jing did not move. Like a statue, he stared at Mo Xie as he walked over. With every step Mo Xie took, his aura rose. In just a few steps, his aura soared to the sky. In the end, he was like a sharp sword. He did not have a sword in his hand, but he was a sword. He could cut hair with a single blow. He was incomparably fierce. Tang Jing was still very calm. It was precisely this calmness that gave people a great pressure. He wasn't bluffing, but he was confident in himself. Mo Xie was very clear on this point. Therefore, when he took the last step, his aura had accumulated to the peak. "Kill!" A low roar burst out from the depths of Mo Xie's throat. It was filled with a feeling of endless power. Once the word "kill" came out, an earth-shattering sword chi was emitted from Mo Xie's body. In an instant, it filled this large space. He was like a sharp sword. He suddenly accelerated. One of his hands was like a sword. He chopped down fiercely. His aura was like a rainbow. Sword chi soared to the sky. This was an expert. He used his hand as a sword, but the power of his attack was not inferior to a real sword. Tang Jing finally moved. He lifted the hidden mysterious sword. His speed was very slow, as if he was moving in slow motion. On the contrary, Mo Xie's attack speed was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, he was in front of Tang Jing. He was deeply afraid that Tang Jing was preparing a big move. Therefore, he took the initiative to attack first. He wanted to give Tang Jing a heavy blow. Seeing the rainbow-like sword Qi approaching, Tang Jing casually waved the hidden mysterious sword. This sword's speed was also very slow. It was as if he did not eat his fill. But the moment the hidden mysterious sword chopped down, a mysterious power surged out from the hidden mysterious sword. Its aura could topple mountains and overturn seas. This is Sword Qi. Mo Xia immediately recognized it. He shouted loudly. The hidden mysterious Sword Qi was not invisible. It was black. However, if one wanted to distinguish it with the naked eye, they would have to observe carefully. The hidden mysterious Sword Qi was like a rainbow. The Sword Qi collided with Mo Xia's Sword Qi. There was no earth-shattering collision. There was not even a trace of a ripple. Mo Xia's Sword Qi was like a clay ox entering the sea. It completely disappeared into the hidden mysterious Sword Qi. Chasm. Mo Xia immediately thought of this word. Other words were not enough to describe the difference between the two. Therefore, he used the word chasm. But Mo Xia did not retreat. There was no way to retreat. Tang Jing did not only need this short exchange. He needed an even more perilous situation. Only then would Tang Jing be able to fully display the power of the hidden mysterious sword. Mo Xia had to do this. Therefore, he used his hand as a sword and rushed towards Tang Jing, who was just inches away. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1439. Seeing Mo Xia charge at him, his raging fighting spirit was almost uncontrollable. It soared into the sky, and his explosive power seemed to break through the horizon. Tang Zhang's blood was boiling as the hidden mysterious sword cheered loudly. The sword light spread out in all directions, covering the large space. Whoosh! Whoosh! Two sounds broke through the air. A sword Qi and a sword light attacked each other. Bang! In midair, sparks flew in all directions from this confrontation. It was no longer safe and sound, and the wind and waves were calm. Lines flashed on the hidden mysterious sword like secret runes. After flashing, it made people tremble from the bottom of their hearts. Mo Xia's eyes narrowed into slits as he stared at the flashing lines and shouted, "Sacred runes! Sacred runes!" Tang Jing frowned. This was the first time he had heard of these two words. He had seen similar lines on other sacred weapons before. Could it be that sacred weapons all had their own lines, so they were called sacred runes? His guess was correct. Sacred weapons had their own unique lines, which was the key to distinguishing them from other magic weapons. Sacred runes were equivalent to human genes, a unique symbol. The complexity of the sacred runes represented the power of the sacred weapon. Sacred runes were not more powerful the more complicated they were. On the contrary, the simpler they were, the more powerful they were. The Great Tao was simple. Turning complexity into simplicity was the most powerful. Therefore, the sacred runes on Tang Zhang's sacred weapons were mostly complicated. They looked mysterious, but in reality, they had greatly reduced the quality of the sacred weapon. Tang Jing did not know this, but Mo Xia was not unfamiliar with it. After all, he was a master blacksmith and had seen many sacred weapons. He had also studied sacred runes. Sacred runes were not carved by master blacksmiths themselves, but naturally grew during the refining process. Why was the process like this? Why would sacred weapons be produced? Even Mo Xia himself did not fully understand. But he concluded that sacred runes were the truth of the Great Tao being simple. In fact, he had seen many sacred weapons and studied many sacred runes. Originally, he would not be so surprised when he saw sacred runes. He was used to it. After all, the hidden mysterious sword was a sacred weapon. It was normal for it to have sacred runes. However, when he saw the saint inscriptions on the hidden mystic sword, he was still shocked, speechless. Why are the saint inscriptions of the hidden mystic sword so simple? It's ridiculously simple. The saint inscriptions extend from the hilt to the tip without any sense of chaos. Impossible. How is this possible? He had always wanted to refine a magic treasure with simple sacred inscriptions. Wasn't that the sacred inscriptions in front of him right now? However, he had once put in so much effort, but to no avail. He almost didn't dare to think like this. He even believed that it was impossible for a complicated saint inscription to appear, especially one as simple as this. The scene before him gave him a heavy blow and made him understand that he was a frog at the bottom of a well. It wasn't that there were no saint inscriptions in this world, but that he didn't have the ability to refine them. Bang! The moment the sacred inscriptions lit up, the hidden mysterious sword's power increased greatly. It ruthlessly shattered Mo Xie's sword chi. The sword light was unstoppable and hit Mo Xie. Although Tang Jing dissipated most of the force, Mo Xie's mind was in chaos. He was completely distracted and was hit by the sword. Like a kite with a broken string, he ruthlessly crashed into the wall of the secret room. If not for the protection of the formation, the wall would have collapsed. Tang Zheng was shocked by the power of the sword. Especially when Mo Xie's mind was distracted. He saw it clearly and didn't understand why Mo Xie had such a reaction. Mo Xie climbed up from the ground. He didn't care about the blood at the corner of his mouth. He stared straight at the sacred inscriptions on the hidden mysterious sword. The hidden mysterious sword's battle intent gradually subsided. The sacred inscriptions flickered a few times and disappeared without a trace. Tang Jing saw Mo Xie staring at the hidden mysterious sword and guessed that the reason for Mo Xie's reaction must be on the sword. He went straight to the point and asked, Mo Xie, what's wrong with you? Mo Xie's gaze moved up and finally met Tang Jing's eyes. He couldn't help but feel jealous of Tang Jing. Why did he have such dog's hit luck to refine such a heaven-defying sacred inscriptions on the divine weapon? Tang Zheng looked at Mo Xie in confusion. He didn't understand the reason for his complicated gaze. Why are you looking at me like that? Mo Xie was silent for a long time. He said in disappointment, do you know what's so mysterious about the hidden mysterious sword's sacred inscriptions? Hearing him mention the sacred inscriptions again and again, Tang Zheng's heart trembled. So the strange thing was on the sacred inscriptions. He glanced at the hidden mysterious sword. With a thought, he activated the hidden mysterious sword. The sacred inscriptions faintly appeared again. He pointed at the sacred inscriptions and said, I don't know what's so mysterious about the sacred inscriptions. Can you tell me? Mo Xie muttered to himself. In the end, he revealed the truth and sighed, it's true that fortune favors fools. After a slight pause, he continued, you know that sacred weapons all have sacred inscriptions. This is the symbol of the sacred weapon's identity. It's a characteristic that other magic treasures have. But the differences between sacred inscriptions are thousands and thousands of different. The more complex the sacred inscriptions, the lower the quality of the sacred weapon. The simpler the sacred inscriptions, the higher the quality of the sacred weapon. Mo Xie spoke tirelessly, but it was as if he was enlightened. It made Tang Jing suddenly realize that sacred weapons and sacred inscriptions had such a mysterious connection. There were so many mysteries. He couldn't help but look at his hidden mysterious sword. The sacred inscriptions on it were very simple. It was even a little too simple. It was just a few perfectly straight lines. He recalled the sacred inscriptions he had seen before. Those sacred inscriptions were obviously much more complex. They couldn't be compared to these simple sacred inscriptions. Moreover, if one carefully observed the sacred inscriptions on the hidden mysterious sword, they could clearly feel the beauty hidden within the simplicity. The simpler the sacred inscriptions were, the more relaxed and happy it made people feel. With a single glance, they would be deeply captivated. Did you see through the mysteries? Mo Xia asked curiously when he saw him staring at the sacred inscriptions. Tang Jing nodded thoughtfully. I saw through a little bit. If it weren't for Mo Xia's reminder or seeing such a simple sacred inscriptions, he definitely wouldn't have noticed the mysteries within the sacred inscriptions. Even Tian Chanzi had never mentioned anything about sacred inscriptions before. In fact, this wasn't hard to understand. Although Tian Chanzi's strength was extraordinary, compared to Mo Xia, an expert from ancient times, especially a master artificer, the gap was like a natural chasm. The number of sacred weapons Tian Chanzi had seen could be counted on one hand. But Mo Xia had seen too many sacred weapons. Moreover, he had personally refined a sacred weapon. It could be imagined how detailed and profound his understanding of sacred weapons was. Hearing Tang Jing say that he saw through a little bit, Mo Xia couldn't help but sigh. This person's intelligence was extraordinary. It was no wonder he had such achievements today. The few great figures from ancient times were just like him when they were young. Suddenly, he had a feeling that perhaps Tang Jing was far more powerful than he had imagined. Moreover, he would go even further. He had always treated him as an enemy, but it might not have been the right thing to do. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1440. What? Tang Jing was shocked. He thought he heard wrong. Mo Xia actually wanted to borrow the hidden mysterious sword to study for a few days. He stared at Mo Xia, seeing his serious face. He was sure he was not joking. He could not help but ask, is the hidden mysterious sword really that important? Mo Xia nodded his head. He is far more important than you think, much more powerful. Chapter 1441. Mo Xia had returned to Sumer Heavens, but Tang Jing would not let him take the hidden mysterious sword and leave his territory. Mo Xia did not care, since all his thoughts were on the hidden mysterious sword. He was eager to try, impatient to explore the secrets of the hidden mysterious sword. Li Xiaotian looked at the Sumer Heavens on Tang Jing's wrist and said with a heavy heart, Dizong of Goguryu's dark side turning into a weapon spirit, will there be any repercussions? Tang Jing understood her worries. After all, both of them had seen the strength of Dizong of Goguryu's dark side. If the other side had some unfathomable method and left the hidden mysterious sword, then Tang Jing would not be able to stay out of this and might even suffer a backlash. He muttered to himself for a while and said decisively, Dizong of Goguryu's dark side is frightening, but until now I have not found any bad clues. Even if he does turn against me in the future, by that time my strength will have increased by leaps and bounds and I will have the strength to deal with him. Seeing him in high spirits and full of confidence, Li Xiaotian's eyes were filled with splendor, the corners of her mouth raised into a charming smile. I believe in you. Tang Jing's women had witnessed his growth, his strength, and his success time and time again, so naturally they chose to believe in him. Even if his self-confidence was inflated, or even arrogant, they would still choose to believe in him. Tang Jing was not worried about Dizong of Goguryu's dark side, but instead his eyes fell on the 9 revolving pill furnace. There were a few more saint inscriptions on the pill furnace, but he couldn't sense the existence of the artifact spirit. He had to find the artifact spirit from the soul essences on the pill furnace's walls. This wasn't an easy task, and even Mo Xia didn't have an effective method. This was confirmed by the information in the jade pendant. Mo Xia was indeed not lying. Li Xiaotian saw his reaction and guessed his thoughts, but she had no way to help him, so she encouraged him, don't worry, there will be a way. Tang Jing smiled brightly. He took a deep breath and said, yes, there will definitely be a way. We don't need to rush. Wait until I find the artifact spirit of the 9 revolving alchemy furnace. At that time, saint artifacts will no longer be out of reach. I will be able to refine saint artifacts myself. Everyone will also be able to possess saint artifacts and increase their strength. Li Xiaotian nodded heavily. That day won't be too far away. The two of them left the secret room. The others were looking forward to seeing Tang Zheng's empty hands. Their hearts couldn't help but tighten. Yi Dingdang asked impatiently, "How was it? Did you succeed? What do you think?" Tang Zheng asked mischievously. With a whoosh, Yi Dingdang arrived in front of him and urged, "Hurry up and tell me. What's the result?" Tang Zheng smiled and glanced at the others. Everyone had the same reaction. Their gazes were burning. They all knew that Tang Zheng was wholeheartedly refining the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron. This was a very high-risk task and there was no guarantee of success. "Alright, I won't keep you in suspense." Tang Zheng clapped his hands to attract everyone's attention. "I will announce the answer. I have already refined the 9 Serenities' mysterious iron into a sword." "You succeeded?" Yi Dingdang asked. The others were also nervous. They were very concerned about the answer to this question. Tang Zheng slowly nodded and said in a clear voice, "Of course it was a success." "Wow!" Yi Dingdang immediately cheered. She jumped high into the air and landed in Tang Zheng's arms. She tightly hugged him and happily said, "Then quickly take out the sword and let us see." Tang Zheng spread out his hands and said, "I don't have it." "How could you not have it?" Fang Shishir also cried out in alarm. "Don't be nervous." Tang Zheng saw this and blurted out, "The divine sword has indeed been successfully refined. However, I am currently loaning it to Mo Xia. In 3 days, he will return it to me." Hearing this, everyone was even more confused. How did this have anything to do with Mo Xia? "You said divine sword. What grade did you refine?" Tian Chanzi immediately grasped the main point and hurriedly asked. "A sacred tool." Tang Zheng lightly said. "What?" Tian Chanzi was shocked. "You actually refined a sacred tool?" The others were shocked at first. Then they were overjoyed. A sacred tool was a supreme treasure that could only be encountered by chance. Tang Zheng was actually able to refine a treasure of this level. Wasn't this a great thing? If everyone had a sacred tool in the future, how spectacular would that be? Who would be their opponent? Just the thought of it was enough to make one's blood boil and blood boil. Tang Zheng could understand Tian Chanzi's thoughts. After all, a sacred tool was an absolute temptation to any cultivator. Hearing that Tang Zheng was actually able to refine a sacred tool on his own was truly shocking. "How did you do it?" Tian Chanzi couldn't suppress the mixed feelings in his heart and asked. "Actually, this is not just my work alone," Tang Zheng pointed at Li Xiaotian, "she also contributed, and Mo Xia's help." Tang Zheng spoke tirelessly. Everyone was shocked as they listened. All of their attention was attracted. Hearing the thrilling and exciting parts of the story, they felt as if they had experienced it themselves. Their hearts were also suspended in midair. When Tang Zheng finished speaking, many people's hearts still hadn't calmed down. They looked at Tang Zheng in bewilderment. Tian Chanzi suddenly understood. No wonder Mo Xia was related to this matter. He actually played such a big role. The title of Master Refiner was indeed well-deserved. He was much more powerful than himself, who was an unorthodox person. He knew that with his own strength, there was no way he could do this. He was gratified and looked at Tang Zheng with mixed feelings. He said, "You are really smart. If you had used your own strength to refine it, whether or not you would have succeeded is still unknown." Tang Zheng knew that this sentence wasn't wrong. He nodded and said, "This is all thanks to Li Xiaotian. If not for her reminder, I would have almost overlooked this point." Yi Dingdang, Fang Shishir, and the others looked at Li Xiaotian with complicated expressions. She had actually helped Tang Zheng so much. It really gave them a feeling of catching up from behind. This made them feel a sense of urgency. They couldn't not work hard. The few women secretly clenched their teeth and tensed their nerves, mustering all their strength. Li Xiaotian saw that several pairs of eyes were like lasers, uniformly shooting towards her. Her heart moved and she immediately understood what was going on. But she was calm and composed, as if nothing had happened. She didn't feel the slightest bit of complacency. She knew that the gains and losses of this city and pool were not worth mentioning. Tang Zheng and Tian Chanzi didn't pay attention to the open and covert struggle between the few women. The two of them coincidentally put their attention on the things they had obtained from Mo Xia. Tang Zheng didn't hide anything and shared it with Tian Chanzi. Tian Chanzi was very excited and didn't want to miss any details. It seemed that he wanted to talk to Tang Zheng for 3 days and 3 nights. In fact, the actual situation was similar. For the next 3 days, Tian Chanzi and Tang Zheng sat and discussed, analyzing and studying the things that Mo Xia had given them. The two of them benefited a lot. It turned out that the path of refining had so many things. It was an eye-opener. The two's ability to refine weapons improved by leaps and bounds. They were eager to try it out and couldn't wait to test it out. But an important piece of news came from the Li Palace. The Li Palace had always been inquiring about the Empyrean fairy, but unexpectedly discovered the whereabouts of another person, Yan Qingyi, or in other words, the whereabouts of the Emperor of Heaven. To read the latest novel, please visit the website. Chapter 1442. Yan Qingyi's whereabouts had actually been discovered by the Li Palace. This was truly shocking news. Tang Zheng was shocked and immediately made the decision to go see Yan Qingyi. Yan Qingyi had disappeared for so long, it was definitely not for no reason. Now that she had appeared again, it could not be ruled out that there was another deeper meaning. In addition, Qiyu had always wanted to use the Empyrean fairy to bait the Emperor of Heaven, this big fish. What if the Emperor of Heaven fell for it? Therefore, no matter what, Tang Zheng could not sit idly by. He had to think of a way to see Yan Qingyi. Li Xiaotian was very clear about Tang Zheng's thoughts. He said considerately, "The preparations have been completed. We can leave at any time." Tang Zheng nodded heavily and praised, "Good, then wait for me for a moment." His spiritual sense entered Sumra world. Mo Xia was concentrating on studying the hidden profound sword. Seeing him like a meditating monk, Tang Zheng lightly coughed and interrupted Mo Xia. 3 days have passed. Mo Xia suddenly raised his head and asked in disbelief, "How is it so fast?" Time passed, but he did not feel it at all. His entire body and mind were immersed in the hidden profound sword, trying to explore its mysteries. Tang Zheng lightly said, "You're too engrossed. I wonder what you've gained." "Of course I've gained something." Mo Xia's face immediately brimmed with radiance, but he immediately restrained it, as if he was deeply afraid that Tang Zheng was prying into the mysteries he had comprehended. Tang Zheng looked deeply at him, but did not pursue the matter. He was not surprised that Mo Xia had gained something from studying the hidden profound sword. Because, with Mo Xia's intelligence and rich experience, this was an inevitable result. He was also not jealous. He did not even want to have any ideas about Mo Xia's research results. He believed that once he studied the hidden profound sword, he would definitely gain something as well. He did not need to rely on Mo Xia. Mo Xia nervously looked at Tang Zheng, deeply afraid that he would want to take away the thing he had studied with great difficulty. But seeing that he was calm and composed, and did not seem to pursue the matter further, he let out a sigh of relief. He reluctantly looked at the hidden mysterious sword and said, "You want to take it back?" "Of course." Tang Zheng nodded. Mo Xia really wanted to ask Tang Zheng to lend it to her for a few more days, but her pride won over her desire. If she did that, wouldn't she be slapping herself in the face? Previously, he had boasted that within 3 days, he would be able to thoroughly study the mysteries of the hidden mystic sword. Now that he wanted to keep the hidden profound sword, wouldn't that mean that he hadn't studied the hidden profound sword thoroughly within 3 days? He would never do such a thing. He took a deep breath and resisted the urge to keep the hidden sword. He pretended to be generous and said, "Take it back." Tang Jing took the Xuanzang sword. The moment the sword landed in his palm, the Xuanzang sword immediately let out a high-pitched sword hum, as if it was cheering for returning to its owner's hand. Mo Xie's expression changed slightly as he let out a long sigh. How he wished that he had such a godly sword. Wait a minute. Seeing that Tang Jing was about to leave, Mo Xie hurriedly called out to him, "You promised me to persuade Tian Chanzi. What happened?" Tang Jing stopped and looked at Mo Xie, saying, "I tried to persuade him, but he still hasn't agreed." Mo Xie's pupils shrunk as he stared at Tang Jing, as if trying to discern whether his words were true or false. Tang Jing calmly looked at him. It was as he said, he tried to persuade Tian Chanzi, but Tian Chanzi was stubborn and did not compromise. He was not willing to let Mo Xie examine his body to see if there was still the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor. After a long while, Mo Xie's interest waned as he lowered his head. He faintly sighed and said, "All right, then I will continue to wait for your news. I hope that he will agree soon." Mo Xie really did not see any flaws. Moreover, he was the one asking for help, so he did not dare to act rashly. Looking at his lonely expression, Tang Jing said, "Don't worry, there will be a day when he will agree. I will do my best to persuade him." These words were not all lies. Tang Jing would continue to persuade Tian Chanzi, because if there really was the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor in his body, then it would be like a ticking time bomb that could explode at any time. Whether or not Tian Chanzi could resist the remnant soul of the Yellow Emperor again was unknown. Therefore, letting Tian Chanzi examine his body was not necessarily a bad thing. At least, it could first ensure Tian Chanzi's safety. After Tang Jing finished speaking, he did not pursue the matter any further. With a thought, he left Sumi world. Tian Chanzi was immediately attracted by the hidden mysterious sword that suddenly appeared in his hand. These days, he had heard too much about the various magical aspects of the hidden mysterious sword. Now that he finally saw its true appearance, he almost could not suppress his excitement, and his face flushed red. Tang Jing glanced at him and handed the hidden mysterious sword to him. Tian Chanzi was suddenly startled, and immediately his eyes bloomed with a blazing gaze. He rubbed his hands hard, as if he wanted to make his hands cleaner so that they could be worthy of the hidden mysterious sword. He was no stranger to sacred weapons, but for such a high-quality sacred weapon, he had rarely seen it in his life. He had already heard Tang Jing mention about sacred inscriptions. He also knew that the sacred inscriptions of the hidden mysterious sword were extraordinary, and that even Mo Xie wanted to study them. He carefully received the hidden mysterious sword as if he was receiving a sacred object. His gaze was firmly attracted, and he was unwilling to move away. "Don't be so nervous, there's no need to be so exaggerated." Tang Jing laughed involuntarily. He rarely saw Tian Chanzi like this, and could not help but look at him with interest. Tian Chanzi rolled his eyes and said, "What do you brat know? This is an extraordinary sacred weapon. It is equivalent to a sacred object. How can I not be in awe and be careful?" Tang Jing helplessly rolled his eyes, and gave up in his heart. He helplessly said, "All right, you study it carefully." Tian Chanzi had an expression of course I will study it." His finger brushed across the blade, but he was not the owner of the hidden mysterious sword. When his finger brushed across the blade, there was not the slightest difference. Tian Chanzi's expression turned cold. He urged his power, and a stream of qi flew out from his fingertips. Pooh! The qi was like an electric current, hitting the hidden mysterious sword. Shwa! The sword light soared into the sky, covering the sky and covering the earth. It was incomparably fierce, and spread in all directions. Tian Chanzi was the first to bear the brunt, and immediately suffered. Hiss! He sucked in a breath of cold air. Before he could retreat, he was hit by the sword light. One must know that he was a person who practiced the outer sky flying immortal sword technique. He was well versed in the way of the sword, but when he saw this sword light, he still felt a sense of fear. He hurriedly retreated, and loosened his fingers. The hidden mysterious sword fell from his palm, but it did not fall to the ground. Instead, it lightly floated in the air. The hidden mysterious sword's light was like a dazzling sun, attracting everyone's attention. This is really different. Tian Chanzi's heart still had a lingering fear. He was still in a state of shock, and resentfully withdrew his hand. Tang Zheng waved his hand, and the hidden mysterious sword cheered. With a whoosh, it flew back into his hand. The sword light was restrained, and it looked ordinary. But no one dared to underestimate the hidden mysterious sword. It revealed a little of its edge, and it had such power. It was really amazing. Tang Zheng's gaze fell on Li Xiaotian, and said, "Let's go find Yan Qingyi." Although the other women wanted to refuse, the Li Palace was under the control of Li Xiaotian. She was the only one who knew the situation best. No matter what, the people accompanying them could not exclude her. To read a novel, please visit Chapter 1443. On the somersault cloud, Tang Zheng and Li Xiaotian stood side by side with Xiao Bai beside them. Although there were many objections from the family, the two still traveled together in the end. Of course, Xiao Bai was missing as well. Xiao Bai had already become a pillar of support and was indispensable. Li Xiaotian pointed out the direction, and the somersault cloud whizzed away like a jet plane skimming across the blue sky. Because the tree of life had improved the environment of this world, there was no longer any hazy weather. The blue sky and white clouds made people feel relaxed and happy as they experienced the beauty of nature. Whoosh! A gust of wind blew from the front. It was ridiculously strong and caused the somersault cloud to sway a few times before immediately stabilizing. Li Xiaotian stared ahead with a burning gaze and said, "There's a situation up ahead." Tang Zheng nodded slightly. He had already seen through it. His heart stirred as he asked, "How far are we from Yan Qingyi?" "Not far." Tang Zheng secretly nodded his head, deep in thought. Suddenly, a beam of light descended from the sky. The two of them were shocked and hurriedly looked up. "What is that?" Li Xiaotian pointed at the sky and asked. Tang Zheng's attention was also attracted by the sky. A beam of light descended from the sky and a crack appeared in the sky. The crack was so deep that one couldn't see the bottom. Tang Zheng was shocked and cried out, "Spatial gate." "What, spatial gate?" Li Xiaotian was shocked. She was all too clear about the power of spatial gates. Suddenly seeing the spatial gate, Li Xiaotian was shocked out of her wits and hurriedly asked, "Who opened the spatial gate?" Tang Zheng had some understanding of the spatial laws and naturally wanted to find out who in this world had such great ability to actually open a spatial gate. Which world does this spatial door lead to? Will there be enemies coming out from it? Li Xiaotian asked again, trembling with fear. Tang Zheng's head started throbbing. This was one of his biggest worries. He was most worried that a powerful enemy would come out of the spatial door. That would definitely be a huge disaster for this world. Xiao Bai stared at the spatial gate without blinking. After a while, he said, "This is the spatial gate that leads to the realm beyond heaven." "What? Enter the outer sky?" Tang Zheng exclaimed, his voice rising several octaves. Xiao Bai nodded. "I sensed the aura of the outer sky from the spatial gate." Tang Zheng immediately remembered that the last time he and Xiao Bai's spiritual awareness crossed the sky beyond sky, they must have alerted the other side. If they followed the tracks and crossed through this space door, it would definitely be a disaster. Tang Zheng could no longer sit still. He activated the somersault cloud and rushed forward. The person who opened the spatial door must be in front of him. As expected, a figure leaped into his eyes. His pupils shrank, and he immediately locked onto his target. Yan Qingyi. At almost the same time, he and Li Xiaotian called out at the same time. It was actually Yan Qingyi who opened the spatial door. Tang Zheng had obtained the spatial law mystique from the Dragon Slayer. But where did Yan Qingyi comprehend the spatial law from? Could it be because of the Emperor of Heaven? Tang Zheng was puzzled. He walked in front of Yan Qingyi and shouted, "Stop! Do you know what you're doing?" Yan Qingyi raised her eyes and looked at him indifferently. There was no fluctuation in her eyes. She said, "Why should I stop? You're destroying this world. Do you know that?" Tang Zheng said earnestly. "Destroying?" Yan Qingyi looked up at the sky and stared at the spatial door. She said, "It's precisely because I predicted the end of the world. That's why I'm using this method to save this world." Tang Zheng's head moved. He said, "Didn't you say that the prediction of the end of the world wasn't accurate? That was in the past. Now, I can tell you with certainty that the end of the world will really happen." Yan Qingyi said without stopping until she shocked him to death. Tang Zheng turned pale with fright and subconsciously asked, "Then who caused the end of the world?" Yan Qingyi looked at him deeply and said, "Far at the horizon, but close at hand." Tang Zheng pondered for a moment and pointed at his nose. "You're talking about me?" Yan Qingyi did not answer, which could be considered as a tacit admission. Tang Zheng's expression changed again and again. He took a deep breath and suppressed the restless emotions in his heart. He asked, "Didn't you say that I'm the savior of the world? That was in the past. Now, you're not. You've become the source of the world's destruction." Yan Qingyi said without a trace of emotion. Even with Tang Zheng's thick nerves, he could not accept this reality. He had always wanted to save this world and had already put in a lot of effort and paid a lot of price. How could he become the source of the world's destruction? This did not make sense. He did not want to be the savior of the world, but he also did not want to be the chief culprit of the world's destruction. "You're talking nonsense." Li Xiaotian heard this and finally could not help but blurt out a retort. Xiao Bai also retorted, "Yes, she's talking nonsense. We don't need to pay attention to her." Tang Zheng stared at Yan Qingyi with a burning gaze, as if he wanted to discern the truth of her words. However, after looking at her for a while, he was certain that Yan Qingyi was not lying. At least based on his understanding of her, she was not lying. Moreover, with the relationship between the two of them, there was no need for her to lie. But how could this be true? The only explanation was that her prophecy was not accurate. Yes, it must be like this. Tang Zheng silently gave the answer and said, "Yan Qingyi, what is your basis?" "A prophecy with just a few words will not be able to convince me. This is the will of the heavens. Whether or not I can convince you is not important." Yan Qingyi said lightly. "Then what are you going to do?" Tang Zheng asked in a deep voice. Yan Qingyi looked at Tang Zheng with a deep gaze and said word by word, "You and I can be considered to have met by chance, so naturally I won't kill you. Although this is the best way. Kill him." Li Xiaotian snorted disdainfully, "Hee, you really know how to talk big. Don't think that just because you know how to act mysterious, you can kill whoever you want." Li Xiaotian only had eyes for Tang Zheng. After hearing Yan Qingyi's words, the anger in her heart was ignited, like a volcano that was about to erupt. Yan Qingyi could hear her emotions, but did not care and said, "Whether or not I can kill him is not up to you to decide. Moreover, I don't need to prove this to you." This tone seemed to be saying that if she wanted to kill Tang Zheng, it would be as easy as turning over her hand. It was not difficult at all. This made Tang Zheng's head bulge. Yan Qingyi was not someone who would talk big. Could it be that she had some kind of fortuitous encounter? "Then you'll have to get past me first." Li Xiaotian stepped forward and said resolutely. Yan Qingyi's gaze once again turned to the spatial door and said, killing you is useless. I want to open the spatial door and let all of this come to an end. I want to dissolve all of the karma and prevent the destruction of this world. Happy National Day, there is a second chapter. To read a novel without mistakes, please visit